Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, episode 200 of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who's traveling through dimensions with me tonight?
I am everywhere. I'm everything everywhere all at once. My name is Dominic. Hello.
Well, I'm just here, and I'm Barry Carenza.
And welcome back, both of you. And one thing that made me happy is 2 years ago, we covered Chrono Trigger for episode 100. I told myself and everybody anyone listen to the episode that episode 200 I'm going to cover Chrono Cross, and I remembered and I did it. That made me happy.
Golly, you sure did it.
That's impressive. I can't remember what I had for dinner yesterday, and here you are 100 episodes later.
It was something that I kept joking about, I'm going to do it, and I did it. So the joke is going to be episode 300 is going to be Xenogears, but I don't know if 300 will fall into Spooktober, depending on how time works with the schedule.
Ooh.
So if it doesn't,
that'd be very good.
So either way, it's going to happen, because the only reason why it hasn't happened on the show is I played Xenogears in 2020 during COVID, and I was like, fuck it, let's do it. But then my co-host at the time were like, no, we're not going to play that, and then it didn't happen because it's a gigantic RPG. But one day,
I'll come back for 300 to do Xenogears. That sounds fun. I love Xenogears.
Great game, and it's a good game. Okay, but yeah, at some point, because I need to cover that one too. I'm trying to cover all the PS1 RPGs that I love for sure.
Episode 400 will be Xenosaga Episode 1.
Oh, God.
I do need to play that. I bought that game on release day and still have never played it much.
Have you at least played the Xenoblade series?
No.
Oh, my God. What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I got nothing. I own Xenoblade Chronicles X for Wii U, but that's it. But I haven't touched that series yet. It's on my list of things I need to do.
Those series are amazing.
The big secret is that they've been trying to tell the Xenogears story for 25 years. And they keep getting fucked up.
One day. Oh, but Chrono Cross, the game that we are here to talk about, came out in 2000.
Yes.
I thought it was 1999. Okay.
1999
in Japan. God, it took us a while to get it.
I mean, this is the game. If we're talking history, this is the final game that the chronology from Chrono Trigger to Radical Dreamers to Xenogears to this. After this, a lot of the Square team that were making this, part of them went off to make Monolith Soft. The other part of them worked on Final Fantasy XI.
Okay.
So if you want to know why there's no more Chrono games, it's because the Chrono team went to make Final Fantasy XI or Xenosaga.
Which was amazing game, as was Xeno.
11, I got things, but so also the funny thing is, back when I first announced that we were going to do this 2 years ago, they hadn't released, or they hadn't even announced the Radical Dreamers edition. And then as time went on, we were greeted with the 2022 release, where we got the Radical Dreamers edition, which came on Switch, PC, everything, which is what I played, which is the same game. But
yeah, I dabbled in it a little bit, but I did play the PS1 version earlier this year.
Okay. See, you were smart. You played it ahead of you played it ahead of time.
I'm just glad that they brought that out, because it was when the original game was out, back in 2000, I was just starting college, and I didn't have my PS1 at the time, and in the college dorm, you really didn't have room to set up systems, so I was dabbling in emulation. So a lot of the stuff I was playing at the time was stuff we never got. So I found Radical Dreamers that way while I was in college.
Lucky.
With the fan translation, I was like, "What's this? Another sequel to Chrono Trigger?" And I read all about it, and I got to play Radical Dreamers back in 2000 via fan translation, 2001 on my PC. So when this was announced, I'm like, "Are they going to even acknowledge Radical Dreamers finally after all these years?" And sure enough, they did. I was like, "Yes!" Finally, I'm not the only one to experience this in America.
I wrote an article for my blog a few years ago talking about how they should do it. Because there'd be no more Chrono games. It'd be insane not to release Radical Dreamers at some point. People keep talking about Chrono, and then that's the only other content you can get. And here, sure enough, they released it. And
we covered it on the show not too long ago. I'll look it up later. But it was and there's a reference to it in this game too, and it's in this game.
They take it seriously. This is a remake, basically,
or remaster
version. Another version of what Radical Dreamers was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Radical Dreamers came out first, but this game actually acknowledges Radical Dreamers as a parallel world.
Yeah.
So when I had always had kind of mixed thoughts about Chrono Cross for years. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I'm like, okay, this game isn't that great. I don't like it. And because it wasn't what I wanted in 2000 when I first played
Sure.
it. It wasn't the sequel I wanted. It wasn't the game I wanted. But as when I played it this past week for the show, there's still things I don't like. That it's a personal thing. I don't like a game where I can't grind and grind and grind and grind and be super powerful. And this game does not let you do that.
See, that's what I like about it. It's like you don't have to worry about anything.
No, you can't grind.
Yeah. It's like it's all, you can customize as much as you want, but beyond that, just leave it alone. Just experience the game.
See, I'm with Michael there. I like having that ability, that freedom, where if I want to grind a little bit, I can grind a little bit.
See, that's why I like Final Fantasy VIII. I don't do any battles in 8 except if I have to.
8 is just use the GF system and win. Like that.
I'm actually playing 8 for episode 225, hopefully.
Ooh.
So, but no, I mean, it is good. Like that's. I mean, I do respect that it has that the game, did that where you don't need to level up all the time. You don't need to do all that. Like it was nice. It just there were a couple times in the game where I'm like, I really want to grind because I can't beat. There was one boss where I couldn't beat him. I said fuck it and moved on. But
that's fair. I think I also had that problem. Was it the monster fighting one?
I didn't even mess with that. I saw it and I'm like, that's hard. Nice.
If I can make a comparison, I think this comparison works on a few different levels. Chrono Trigger is Terminator 1. Chrono Cross is Terminator 2.
I can't get that. I get what you're saying with that, but I feel like Terminator 2 is more well loved than Terminator 1, and I feel Chrono Trigger is far more loved than Chrono Cross.
Which is a shame because this game is great. But I mean,
this game is great. I'm saying in public perception.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Chrono Trigger is like the core experience. It's like the very basic idea that's executed really, really well. But it's, fairly not basic,
I almost feel
but
like
it's streamlined.
I would say Chrono Trigger is Terminator 2, and this is Terminator 3, where it has its fans and it does things well. But
fan reception perhaps
doesn't.
But this is the game. This runs circles around Chrono Trigger like T2 kind of does T1. It rounds it out in such an expansive way.
Story wise, I agree with you. I'm talking fan response.
Sure, I don't care about the fan response. Fans are stupid. People out there hate The Last Jedi. I don't understand it.
I hate The Last Jedi too. So I haven't seen it since theater. So
anyone who hates The Last Jedi deserves Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker is a better film in my opinion. That's.
I like it because it's such a dumb movie.
Saw it in theaters and I loved it in theaters and I wanted to cry because I thought it was so good just because, and then I have not seen it since and I know exactly when I do, my opinion will not be the same. So
I just look at the sequel trilogy. That doesn't exist. Tales of the Jedi, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, what they're doing works. The sequel trilogy does not work.
But Chrono Cross is such a mature take and like a mature expansion of what Chrono Trigger does in every conceivable way.
I think I was in that same boat too. I feel like I used to make the joke or make comment. Well, Chrono Cross is not really a sequel to Trigger, it's just there. But now that I've replayed it, now that I experience it again, I'm like, it's like you said, it's 100% a sequel. It's just a different thing. It's just not what you wanted because it takes stuff from Chrono Trigger and it puts it away in a box. And it essentially between the PS1 version with the cutscenes, between the DS version and now playing this game and then putting things together, they pretty much they kill Chrono and Luca. They're all dead.
Yeah.
Which is great. I love it.
I hate it, but it makes sense.
I just hate that Chrono goes out 5 months later.
Thing.
You get that happy ending and they're dead 5 months later.
See, I like universes with stakes. I love when stuff actually happens because it makes it so much more meaningful, especially in video games where you have an infinite number of excuses to bring characters back or do this or do that.
Well, they could always bring characters back in a game with time travel and alternate
universes. That's why I love Metal Gear Solid 4 because Metal Gear Solid 4's tone is just so perfect because of where Snake is, right? You can't come back from that in that game.
Yeah.
Reminded me I got to start that.
Snake is just old. He's going to die. It's a great premise.
I mean, if you think about Chrono Cross, what Square did and the team did is they were playing 4-dimensional chess with this game around Chrono Trigger. And for those of us at that time, we were in our teenage years and we didn't want that. We didn't know we wanted that because we just wanted a sequel. We wanted the same gameplay with the same characters.
You wanted The Force Awakens.
Yes, that's exactly true. We wanted The Force Awakens, something familiar, something we could get behind. And Chrono Cross was absolutely not that.
Chrono Cross was The Last Jedi.
No, because Chrono Cross is actually good.
Oh God,
Time will tell.
That movie.
We'll come back to this in 20 years and
You
we'll
know
see
what?
what you're saying then.
You know what? You're probably right. I think a lot of media, a lot of ages differently. Some age gracefully, and some age poorly. And the fact that we're talking about this now, 22 years later from the American release, 23 from the Japanese release, and we're talking about it in such high regards. And there was such good fanfare around the remake or the re-release. It says something. It says that this game is aged extremely well, and the perception as well has been kinder to it than some other games.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game with ideas. It's a game that has something going for it beyond, just trying to look cool or, be a sequel to something and just get the accolades. Like, it really feels like, Chrono Trigger was like a really cool idea that a lot of people worked really hard on. But Masato Kato sat down and was like, no, this is the story I actually want to tell and, like, say something with.
To be fair, it's also convoluted as all get out.
Which I love, which is fantastic. I love convoluted shit. I love Xenosaga, but like
I didn't like the convoluted story of this back in the day, but now that I'm older and more intelligent and have the internet at my disposal completely, like I'm okay with this complicated story because this story is like so fucking bizarre because instead of having going through time, you have two different realities, which I think at the time my brain couldn't I'm like, what? I mean, now it makes perfect sense to me is that, as the game progresses, you find out that because Surge was killed in this time, and he wasn't supposed to die, it ended up splitting time, and now there's two universes, one where he didn't die, and how things are differently. And I love that idea that he's going back and through time, except the real world is the one where he died.
It's such a good premise too.
It's a great premise. I will say this. This is a game that I played back in 2001, 2002 is when I finally got to play it. I think it was 2002. And I absolutely loved it then. Like, I was able to pick up, I love the convoluted thing because I think it's one of those things where as you play and you experience it at a pace, at an understandable pace, it is fantastic. And those bomb drops that just keep coming. This game has a lot of like the shoe drops and all that moments.
Oh yeah,
it's just one. Oh my god, like floor stripped out from under you. You have no idea. Now going into this, since it's been so long, I remembered so much of this game, but I'm like, you know what? Just let me watch some videos recapping, right? Just to freshen things up. I honestly didn't have the time to sit there and play through the game again because it is a long game. And in watching in like a 30-minute video describing the story, I can tell you this is not one of those games to digest in 30 minutes. Like the convolution goes everything out the window. It's like, wait, what? Because you have no time to digest anything before another twist. And it's so interesting seeing this game from two different perspectives. And after watching a few videos, I'm like, oh yeah, now I remember a lot of that stuff again, and it's more back to me. So I think this is a game where if you don't have the time to sit and really digest and absorb the story, you are going to be confused and lost, and you'll probably put it down. But if you have the time to really sit there and enjoy that story and digest it, take a break and let it simmer, you'll love it. Because
I can agree with that.
It's just so much to it.
Go ahead.
No,
there's
okay.
There's so much to this game, and that's what's
like.
So
I got this game on PS1 because I'm younger than you two, so I got it after the DS version of Chrono Trigger came out because that was the first way I experienced that game. I'm like, okay, cool, Chrono Cross is out there, I can get that. And like, this is like the thing where the battle system totally did not make sense with me when I was younger. So it's like, okay, I'd like to play this, but it's very hard. So I'm just gonna come back to this later and figure it out. Thankfully, this year was the year that actually happened, and I'm really glad that I waited so long and was able to appreciate like everything outside of like that edgy teen like sensibility.
So you were Nikki, is what you're saying?
Yeah, basically.
No, I'm glad you replayed this because I mean, when the fact that you were talking about it earlier this year is also like one reason why you're here with me, which I'm glad.
Right.
Because you also had been a big, like, you kept talking about this game and you were like, oh, it's a good game. And my memories of this before we did this were not good memories. And by, you being positive, it kind of helped me go, okay, I'm going to take a different look at this as an older, as an adult and not someone that's just, I mean, Chrono Trigger is one of my favorite games of all time. If probably my favorite game of all time, as I always say on the show. But like, and that's what made this game hard for me, that the story wasn't what I wanted, but it's so good. Everything, I mean, the battle system is good too. It's different,
Right.
And it took me, like, even this playthrough, it took me a little bit to be okay with it. But once I got into it, I'm like, this is fine.
Like, Monolith Soft has been historically my favorite RPG developer. And I consider, the chronology from Chrono Trigger all the way up to, like, Xenogears, Xenosonic, all of that stuff. Like, to me, that's, like, some of the best RPG gaming has ever been. So,
You didn't go to
finally actually
Xenoblade
tackling
3?
this. I have not been kept up on Xenoblade. I have done
Oh.
Xenoblade 1. I need to play the others.
Oh my god!
I need to play any of them at some point.
You really do, because it's still
Xenoblade
classic
1 is
Monolith
fantastic.
Soft.
Well, because it's like I really dig what they go for, and like this is just as a great example because it's like Xenogears is also known for being very convoluted and very like expressive in its really mature themes, and then there's this, which being a sequel lends it a different context, but also shows how good they were at developing that more mature storytelling style and giving you something that was more than just edgy teens in a dystopian world that are doing things. And granted, I do like Final Fantasy 7 and 8 quite a bit, but this is the more adult-oriented stuff that Square was thankfully providing.
Now, I'm kind of curious because we're all different ages. We all experienced this game at different times. And originally, when this came out, what was your inner circle, your school, your friends circle, whatever was playing, your game shop, wherever, the people you talked to about video games at the time? What was the perception when this game came out versus like when you actually experienced this game for the first time?
This question, and I got my N64 when I was 5 in 2000, so I have no idea.
God, me and my friend had this game, or we in 2000 because I'm born in '87. We both liked it. I remember that, like, we enjoyed the game. It wasn't like the top, like, it wasn't Chrono Trigger, and we both were big fans of Chrono Trigger at the time. But I don't really remember much. I feel like we weren't as positive about this game in general. But then again, I would have been like 13. I would have been like 13 when this came out, so it wasn't what I again. It wasn't what I wanted, and that was my thought pattern for so long. And I don't remember much. I just remember I think we only had one person that played it back then. I think we kind of liked it from what I remember.
I was 17 when it came out, and I didn't have a PlayStation. I had the N64, and I was a big RPG fan coming from the Super Nintendo, especially Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy IV. It was just one of those things where I was starved. The N64 just did not have the RPGs. Paper Mario was great, but that didn't. I don't think
like
that
Aiden Chronicles.
I had Aiden Chronicles. I played Hybrid Heaven. I played Quest 64. I did anything. Harvest Moon 64, Ogre Battle 64. Any of them, I got them and played them because it was anything I could get my hands on. And I didn't get PlayStation until 2002 when I got a PlayStation 2 to play PlayStation 1 games. And that's the sad truth. I got Grand Theft Auto 3 as the only PS2 game, and then I got everything else PS1 games. But I remember when it came out, I remember reading Game Informer and Electronic Gaming Monthly, and the reviews were mixed. And my friends in my circle who had a PlayStation got it, and they were like, "Oh, this game's not that good. This isn't Chrono Trigger," and it was very negative. Like, I remember hearing all these negative things and kind of thinking like, "Okay, well, I can't play it anyways. I'm not missing anything." So when I started getting those PlayStation 1 RPGs, of course, I had to get Chrono Cross, and I remember it was a Christmas break. I think Christmas break 2002. I was off for a month for college, which was awesome. I was a month off. What am I going to do? I'm like, let me try this. Everyone said it was negative. Let me make my own opinion. And I loved it. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is such a good game. So it was weird to have that when it came out, that negative connotation, and thinking, I don't mind missing this. Like, I'm dodging a bullet, to actually playing it and realizing, oh my God, I was missing something. And I'm glad I didn't feel I was missing anything, but now I could really enjoy it. And it's really interesting how that perception, especially when you can't have something, it kind of eases it if you feel it's negative, but you really need to make your own opinion.
Yes.
And I feel like playing this game through this time, and especially the Radical Dreamers edition, which is great, by the way. I mean, it looks a little prettier, but that don't matter. Just the fact that you can play this on a modern day console, or in this case, or in my case, a Steam Deck, and be able to fast forward all the time just to bring the game a little faster, which is nice when you beat this game in a week. So, like, those things like that were just amazing for me. And like, the game is it's just a very complex story. The battle system, I didn't like the fact that you have 3 different attacks for your regular attacks, and they each have a percentage, and the idea that you're supposed to do the weaker attacks to become stronger to do the bigger attacks. And I think when I was younger, I didn't like that. Now I'm like, okay, this is fine. Like, this didn't bother me anymore. And I wasn't stupid and only tried to do level 3 attacks constantly. Like young Mike would have done.
It's not Pokemon where defensive moves are kind of stupid to use, but
yeah, and it's just cool ideas. And the battle system grew on me a lot in this game. Like we talked a little about, but also the way the leveling system works in this game is you beat bosses, you get stars, and stars are the ways that you're able to then get HP upgrades, attack upgrades, and then regular battles will let you upgrade your stats only so far, but then you'll get locked away to get the next star. Which the game doesn't let you just grind away until you're happy.
Right.
Which is good. It's a good thing. I didn't like it. I'm going to say that right there because it's not. I wanted to just grind my life away at certain points in time. Be like, I'm just going to grind forever because that's what I want to do right now. And I couldn't. But the game is not. It's not a bad thing.
It works,
Right.
I think, for this game.
Yes.
I think it depends why you play certain games. Like if you play games for challenge or you play games for story. I've always played RPGs for story, even to this day. I prefer to play an RPG for a story. So I don't mind the grind personally because it just allows me to not have that boss makes me struggle. I just want to be able to pass that boss to see what happens next.
It didn't. Okay, I should say it didn't bother me in this game until
work. It works fine
near the end, and there's an optional boss that kicked my ass like I was level 1. It felt like, and I'm like. I want to level, and I'm like, I can't. So we're just going to skip this optional boss and continue on with the game.
But that's the key. It's optional, and that's the cool thing. It doesn't prevent you. Like if you ever played Final Fantasy X, Seymour has some moments that can be, especially on the mountain with the
God.
That fight.
That's
fight
like my.
We quit for a while.
Yeah,
that breaks a lot of people.
Idea. That's my idea, what grinding is doing Mount Gag is for 20 hours, just to grind.
Yes.
And also realizing I screwed up my sphere grid and I have to reallocate points to everybody, but that's a different story.
Yeah. I don't like it when I don't mind optional bosses that are tough and challenging. I hate it when there's story bosses that literally put just a stop on the story. Literally breaks on, you can't continue. If it was a book, you physically just the next page weighs like 3,000 tons and you just literally can't lift it. And it's like, no, I want to turn the page. I want to see what happens next. Don't do it. Don't leave me on this cliffhanger. And I honestly hate when games do that. And that's why that memory of Final Fantasy X, I didn't remember the mountain name, but I remember that fight. And I stopped for months. And everybody else had that same experience. It's like,
I did too. I didn't stop, but I had the same thing.
Seymour fight. And it's just like, that tells me it's a bad fight. When everyone is experiencing a negative thing, that tells me that is poorly designed. Chrono Cross doesn't have that, which is good. And I like that about this game, and most RPGs that allow you keep that flow going.
It's a good system because it, like you said, it never stops you. Like I was able to pretty much just constantly enjoy this game, constantly go through the next area, explore, get chests. I mean, I would go through an old area, but it was my choice just because I was exploring and I missed something and I wanted to double check to see if I could find something I didn't see before. It wasn't like I ever felt. There was never a point in the regular game other than that boss fight where I felt underleveled or too weak sometimes like, okay, I need to go buy new equipment, but it wasn't, it was never really a big deal. Like I also barely ever upgraded my equipment because you have to craft your equipment and I didn't really get that many different materials for a long time. There aren't that many, but it's like, it never like you said, you can just play this game, enjoy the story and just keep going and get absorbed in the weird wackiness that's going on that doesn't make sense at first. But it's so good. It's such a good mystery.
One could say it was orchestrated by fate.
Yeah. Okay. Before we covered this, after I beat this game, before we did this episode, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos to kind of explain things that I might have missed, and it made me appreciate this game so much more.
Yes.
And I can now say, I consider this game. This game is a great sequel to Chrono Trigger, and that's something that you would have heard me say at any point before. So.
Yeah, and as someone who finally experienced it for the first time this year, but earlier, it's like everyone told me, oh, it's not really a Chrono Trigger sequel. There's not really much Chrono Trigger in it. And it's like, what are you talking about?
I was one of them.
It's integral to Chrono. The Chrono Trigger is integral to this game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You do see them. You do see Chrono and Marl and Luca and everybody. They are there eventually.
And Balthazar. I think it's Balthazar.
Balthazar.
Like the whole point of this. Robo's in this?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't see
He's the computer. He's the computer.
He's the mind.
Oh, okay. That didn't click. Okay. I mean, like, there's little things like Johnny's in this game too. Like, there's a little scene where you see dead Johnny on a highway.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't understand. Like, one thing that never made sense to me until this playthrough, and watching videos, is that, like, because the whole idea is that Surge is this kid that didn't die that goes through worlds. Just kind of, we'll give a quick recap. And like, he's, he wakes up, he meets some girl, he finds out that he's supposed to be dead in this world, and then he's just trying to figure it out. And you end up on this quest to go after a cat guy because this random girl told you, hey, you should join me. And then it just kind of goes from there, where you're trying to hunt this cat guy, and you get a little more story, and then you eventually get your body swapped by the villain, which is also really fucking cool. Like, I remembered it, but it really hit me this time, where I'm like, this is damn cool to have your body swap. Like, you are now the villain that you were hunting, and people are treating you differently because you're the villain. And you lose your whole team because they don't realize that you swap bodies, so they leave you. And
that's also the cool thing of, like, you were a silent protagonist, and then you're not anymore.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Because Surge starts talking once Lynx makes the switch.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And it's like such a cool, like, way to kind of just screw with that premise on, like, a basic level of, like, everyone knows a silent protagonist, but isn't it kind of cool when they start talking for some reason? That's kind of weird.
I didn't catch that. That's cool. Okay.
See, I love that idea of swapping bodies with a villain. At the time when I played it, I hated it because I was so used to Surge's combat, and then I didn't really like Lynx's combat as much. And I'm like, no, now I'm forced to play this, and I can I just at least play like Surge? Like, just no, I don't want to play as Lynx right now because I don't like it as much. And there's nothing I could do.
I had no problem with Lynx, but it's just such a cool concept, and like, the story just keep going, that you just keep trying to solve these mysteries, and as you're traveling through, different things happen. Porray, which again, another trigger reference, the small town to the south of you became a military power. And I mean, I think they mentioned it briefly somewhere that they took over the central continent, which is Guardia and that whole area, and then they came to the El Nido Triangle, which you're in some little area outside of the mainland that's like kind of hidden or something, and then you find out the whole place was created, which makes sense. So
I think there's some implication somewhere that Dalton's also responsible for Porray becoming into power.
In Chrono Trigger, in the newest version, or the DS version, they added stuff that says that Dalton went to the present time to get revenge on Chrono, and he took over Porray, and he's the reason why they're dead, which I don't like, but makes sense.
I just love that they kill him. It's such just a ballsy move.
I don't like it, but it is a ballsy move, and it's not bad. I mean, and the story just works still too, because the whole idea is that, like, once you become Lynx, is you're like, oh, we got to get to the Dead Sea. We got to go to this random place where we find out, your father went in this world and you went missing, and then it turns out that you didn't. Your father doesn't come back, and then your friend, disappeared, or his friend disappeared, but you came back somehow, or something like that. And this whole idea, and then you find out that Chrono, this Dead Sea was when Chrono and them, killed Lavos and changed time. Well, that time that didn't exist now went here because it had nowhere else to go because it never happened. And I love how that's what fucked everything up, and that Balthazar realized it. I cannot say that name. And he, built this giant city, Chronopolis, which you go to a little bit later, which is all meant to observe time, and the whole El Nido Triangle was completely created by them to observe time and observe this effect. And Surge was essentially, everything about Surge was essentially created by Balthazar. Balthazar. We're just gonna call him Belt now. I am, because I can't say it. And the whole idea was that he created this to make this happen, to remedy what Chrono them did by altering time. And I love that now, because it makes sense. I mean, yes, they saved the world, in a sense, in 1999 by, killing this creature, this alien. But what about all the lives and everything that went on after that when the world recovered? Like, the world just didn't end. It didn't blow up. There was still a future. It just wasn't a good future, but there was still a future. Right. And I love that idea that it really connects to that. Like, yeah, it didn't go away. It just went somewhere else.
You're still essentially killing off the lives that would have happened. It's hard, kind of tackling the essential problems of time travel and changing the past.
Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't even realize. That I think just in life, people will do an action without thinking about the repercussions of their actions.
Right.
And it's almost like that ethical question with the train, and you have the switch. Do you let the train kill X amount of people, or do you pull the switch and kill something else instead? Well, that's what this is with any type of time travel. If you go back and change something, you are saving, oh, I'm going to go back and save my wife or my child or my parents from whatever thing. You go back selfishly to save them, and you think, great, that other future now doesn't exist anymore. All those people, you just killed all those people, and you don't think about the ethical dilemma of that, and this game pulls it out. This game front and center. It's like, yeah, you killed all those other people. They killed all those other people in Chrono Trigger.
It's also a great showcase of like perception, because it's like in Chrono Trigger, it's so heroic what you're doing. You're saving the world. And now it's kind of like, well, in a certain context, you were saving the world, but now they kind of all look like assholes in a way.
Well, we're all the heroes to our own stories, right? From every perspective, We're the hero, and from some other's perspective, you're the villain.
It's almost it's almost like this is a story worthy of telling, like a novel or something.
Almost.
A lot of thought and like action, reaction, and consequences were explored.
I really appreciate the story so much more this playthrough than I ever thought I would. Like I still don't care for a lot of the characters beyond Surge and Lynx and a couple others, but
you didn't like Kid?
Kid wasn't even in my party most of the game.
I mean, they did drop the ball with like kind of making some of the connections fit, like not making Magus and Guile line up like they should have. It's kind of a disappointment.
Yeah, I think I forget the reason. There's a reasoning for it. I don't like the reasoning, but I know there was one at the time.
Well, it kind of got dropped. Like there was just too much to write and too much to do.
Yeah, but it really should have been Magus, because it's like you can tell Guile's looking for something. He's like, I don't remember, and he looks like Magus. He flies like Magus. Like it should have been fucking Magus.
But you do have Radical Dreamers then to kind of bridge the gap a little bit more, because in Radical Dreamers it's much more clearly supposed to be Magus.
Oh God, yes.
So if you want to take it that roundabout way and be like, oh yeah, Guile's just another version, yada yada yada, he still could be Magus.
It always bummed me out that it wasn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Magus. Because Luca's in this game. I mean, Luca was killed at the orphanage with Lynx because Fate was trying, which I don't think I remember this, that Fate was trying to get something from her, the Chrono Trigger or something, and she wouldn't give it, so he killed her.
Right.
Or the amulet. I don't remember what he wanted. And like I remember bits and pieces that Kid is actually Scala from Trigger.
Yeah.
Like parts of her or something. Like it's a very complex story, and it holds a lot of its cards to the end of the game.
I'm really curious what you thought of the very end of the game, where it shows Gala walking around real world looking for presumably us. Like I thought that was so, like, when I saw that I was like, wait, what? Oh shit! Like,
the first thing that popped in my head was the Patriots. That's the first thing that went in my head when I saw that scene. I was like, oh hey, I'm playing Metal Gear Solid 2 again. All right, I'm good. But no, this story is so damn good. And then when you like everything with Chronopolis, how it connects to Chrono Trigger, like you were saying, Robo's there, Mother Brain, one of the secret bosses from Trigger was the part of the core of the computer. And that's one reason why Fate kind of goes crazy. Well, of course, you use a freaking homicidal, computer brain to run this program. Like, I love all that.
It's fantastic. It's by not being a traditional sequel, it allows a lot of like your expectations are kind of battered and like you don't know what to expect anymore. You're kind of knocked off your feet a little bit. And so it kind of rearranges things so that when things do line up, you're actually impressed and actually like shocked the way you should be, because it's so different and you don't know what to expect anymore. It's not in a regular sequel, you'd be like, oh, well, this guy's going to come back and this is going to happen probably eventually. And it might not always be the way you expect, but
it sure is not what you expect in this game, because they come, Chrono come back, but they're little ghost kids.
Right, but it's like as if it was a direct sequel, you would never have the shock value or like it'd be hard to replicate how hard these twists go.
You talk about the ballsy move of Square killing Chrono like that, and I'm thinking, like, what if they did something like that today? Like, what if you booted up Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, and within the first chapter, there's a scene where like Cloud walks into a room or whatever, and immediately a bullet goes between his eyes, and he just drops dead. And like he's dead. Like that's it. That's the end of Cloud, just like that. And like they just kill him off, and you do the rest of the game with the rest of the party. And
the funny thing is that Square explored this stuff a lot back then. Like,
I know.
Chrono Trigger, Chrono dies. He can. Final Fantasy VIII, one of the fan theories is that Squall died at some point.
The beginning of the end of the first disc, I think, when he meets the
Yeah. And so it's like they really toy with it a lot, and like it was so easy to mess with like stuff like that, and how video game stories progressed, and how the things you expected to come with the game could just change so easily. Like Metal Gear Solid 2 is like the ultimate example of
Oh yeah, we're gonna
Snake was
play
the
as
guy.
Snake. Oh no, now we're playing as Raiden. What's going
Right.
on?
And it's like people would lose their minds today in a different way if that was happening, right?
And that's what I want to see. I want to see them take expectations and turn them on their head, because I
Right.
think that's when Square tells the best stories.
Yes.
You know, it's like for those that started with 7, one of the biggest things they remember is that Aerith died. Oh my God, that was amazing. Oh, I didn't expect it. Blah blah blah. And like when that happened, and I saw people losing their minds, I was just looking around like, what's the big deal? And like, oh, but it killed the main character. I'm like, have you never played Final Fantasy before? Like, I remember being a kid going to Yang's wife in Final Fantasy IV to tell her that her husband is dead and sacrificed himself to be there for me. I remember the twins turning to stone to save the party, sacrificing themselves. Like, those were moments that were just like, holy crap. This was nothing. Square did all of this long before the PlayStation era, and I wish they would do it again.
Right, because so much of what makes these stories meaningful to people is that they have these actual consequences that, Aerith is like the example that people know now, but letting you build those connections and those like, those feelings towards certain characters, and then like doing things with them to make you kind of reevaluate those things or mourn them or something, that's an integral part of storytelling, Like I know like Bait and Kaitos, even though I'm not super
I love
finished
that
that game, the twist is kind of an evolution from where Chrono Cross went, because it was written by the same guy.
Yep. So Bait and Kaitos 1 and Origins are both phenomenal games. Monolith Soft.
They're so much harder. Oh my god,
So
I need
good,
to.
though.
I need to follow like an exact guide because it is so fucking hard.
But like even Final Fantasy V, I mean the whole time Galuf is in your party, the whole time, and then he sacrifices himself for the party and dies, and his granddaughter takes over, and thankfully she inherits all the stuff you worked on for him. But still, like that was just out of no, like what? Like this whole game, I'm with this guy, and here that was a lasting effect. He doesn't come back. I love it when Square did things like that's why I said I would love if Final Fantasy VII opened up and just killed Cloud. Put those expectations out the window. Make it so that you have no plot armor anymore.
I don't foresee that happening with Cloud.
It's not going to happen.
Well, here's the thing.
I would love.
Here's the thing. It's going to be like a trilogy, right?
Yeah.
I think they said that's going to be the remakes of the trilogy now. And there's that sequence where Cloud is incapacitated.
Yeah.
They could make that a whole game. They could make that a whole game.
I wish they wouldn't. I wish they would stop milking that game. It is not that good. And I hate that Square can take a game and say, we're going to sell it to you in parts and people will buy it up because it sends a bad message. That's why I want them to do something different. If they're going to change the story, let them change it radically. Let them throw everything out the window and really change things, because that's the Square that I love. Don't play it safe. Be different.
But that was a long time ago, Square.
You can argue that for a lot of reasons stuff happened, like how much more expensive it is to make these games now, and how much more time and effort and thinking about has to be put into these things. Like you can't just churn out these games in a year or 9 months or
no,
year and a half
sell
anymore.
An entire game in one package. I mean, look, have you played Dragon Quest XI?
No.
Dragon Quest XI is beyond the fact just a phenomenal RPG. Dragon Quest XI is told in 3 parts, 3 acts. Each act is the size of a standard game. Each act is a complete act, and takes what you would expect of a game and turns it on its head. It literally, like the first act will be like, all right, we're gonna finish this, and by the end of it, you're sitting there, oh my god, Cloud just got shot in the head. What the hell is going on? And then by the second act, you're walking away. You're like, I did it. I beat the game. And then the third act is like, you thought you beat the game. Well, you got the bad ending. Now let's take what you thought you did, turn it completely on its head, and give you the real final ending. Like if you ever saw the Clue movie, it's like, at the end it's like, oh, this is what could have happened, but what if this? It's like that. Dragon Quest XI, it's S. Play S. It has way better music and the added content. It is phenomenal in every way. And that is Square Enix. I'm probably more the Enix side, of course, but Square Enix taking chances doing things that's like change your perspective, that take your expectations on the series, turns it on. That's why it's so successful, because it took Dragon Quest 9, which played it safer. 10 was an MMO. We never got it over here, but people expected it to be, oh, you're this no-name protagonist, the hero, and blah blah blah, and it just changes it. And it shows me that Square still has some of that in it. Bravely Default. If you haven't played Bravely Default, Bravely Second, Bravely Default 2. Oh, again, it shows Square can do that. Bravely Default has such a cool moment that, again, it's on the 3DS, which helps make it even cooler. But it's just like, whoa, where did this come from? This is creative. Bravely Second does the same. Bravely Default 2 does it to a lesser extent. I don't think it hit as hard as the first two. But it shows that Square can do those things. So I would love a third Chrono game or a fourth Chrono game if you want to count Radical Dreamers as the second, because I think they can do this. But as you've mentioned many times, Dominic, the core group is now Monolith Soft. So I don't think Square would do it justice, and I think that's why they haven't touched it in 2 decades.
The thing too that we keep in mind though is that like Dragon Quest is popular, but it's mostly popular in Japan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
they know how to appeal to that. And I feel like, globally then Dragon Quest is not the same, unfortunately, like the same level that
But 11 was very popular in the US as well.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. But I think, there's a perception that Final Fantasy is like the A-list, sink $200 million into each installment of Final Fantasy VII kind of game. Where Dragon Quest is like, let's sink $100 million into one game.
This is the reason they're doing it, is they need money, and they know that they could literally poop in a jar, take a piece of scotch or like masking tape, put it on the jar and write Final Fantasy VII on it, and it would sell. And look, they just did that. There was a mobile battle arena game for Final Fantasy VII,
which is already canceled.
It shut down within a year because they're willing to throw any garbage out there with the name Final Fantasy VII, trying to make it stick because they just want quick money. That's the only reason they're doing it. They know that people will buy it because they're such rabid fans for that game that they sent death threats to Square after that PS3 tech demo. And that to me is
oh god, I remember that
terrible part of gaming culture. And Square will not take more chances on their bigger franchise because of things like that. They will play it safe.
This being said, I think they're shooting for an M-rated game for Final Fantasy 16.
Oh yeah. Well, Yoshida's behind it, and Yoshida did amazing with 14. And 14 is their best game right now. Like it's making
14, and the team that made 14 is a team that worked on 11.
No. The original 14, the 1.0 was the team that worked on 11. The Yoshida team worked on 11, but only worked on 11 after the original team left. They worked on Abyssia. Because
I was trying to tie it back to Chrono Cross, but
well, I'm being truthful here. It's not the same team. The original team, the original 11, which I love 11. I think 11 is probably my favorite game of all time. What worked back in 2002, 2003 didn't work for 14. They did a lot of terrible things. 1.0 was a garbage game, and they brought that back. And Square took chances. Let's nuke the entire world. Literally part of the canon. 1.0 is canon. They nuked the entire world, teleported everybody 5 years later, and now you pick up in 2.0 Realm Reborn. That's why it's called that. 2.0, 5 years post the thing, and all that story took place. All that story was canon. I love that they did that. They took a chance, but they need to take more of those chances, and they need to try again.
I'm hoping 16 will do that. I'm hoping 16 will take that chance.
I do too. I really hope they do.
I think 16 will.
15 in a way is kind of taking a chance because 15 was the original Final Fantasy versus 13, and they were letting Nomura do things, and
it was terrible.
I play 15. I really want to play 15, but
I do too.
It was so boring, and I'm not a fan of the combat either. But just driving around and I'm like, come on, this is not as epic or as fun. Like the story is cool. The combat, the lock-on was bad, and some of the areas you have to explore, really tight little caves, and it's it doesn't work for the 3D combat. That at least didn't work for me. It started making me sick with the camera bouncing back and forth, left and right. Well, what the,
I mean, something that I want to mention about Chrono Cross that we haven't really touched on is this game has so many bosses, and they're almost like puzzle boxes in a sense. Because you can beat them, you can just knock your head against the wall, because it's me. Where I just use attack for the most part, and I use some elements, but you can really, because the element system, which we haven't touched on, which is the magic system in this game, is very good. You get different spells and chests, or steal from enemies, or drops from enemies, and then they each have like they take up so much percentage on your board, and your board is done in levels, and it's a very cool concept that any character can be whatever you want them to be. They all have an innate element like water or shadow or light, for example, if we're sticking with like what those colors actually represent, earth and green. But they can all use different abilities. They can all use different spells. Like you can set them up however you want to approach the boss, because every boss will have an element, and if you hit them with their opposite element, they do more damage, obviously.
Yeah, the bosses are fantastic. Like, I love the designs. Even the dragons, they could have made 6 identical dragons, and the dragons are all different designs.
And I really love how the dragons connect now to Trigger, essentially. Like the way they did in this game, that they connect with Trigger. And I love that, because they're from Dinopolis.
Yes.
Yep. I didn't appreciate that back in the day, but I appreciated it now in this playthrough. More than I thought I would.
The other thing we're neglecting to mention so far is the music.
On purpose.
The music's amazing, man. That opening theme. Oh, that opening theme I hear in my dreams.
Is Time Scar the opening theme?
Yes.
Okay, that is been on my alarm clock for like over a year now. I just love that song.
Like, this is the soundtrack to compare all their soundtracks to.
Yeah. I unfortunately played part of this game mute for reasons, but a lot of just in areas where I'm like, I don't want to hear anything right now.
There's something about this team and picking soundtracks. Just the work. Chrono Trigger's music is beautiful. This is music. I love Baten Kaitos' theme. Xenoblade, all 3 Xenoblade, or 4 really with X, but all 3 mainline Xenoblade music is fantastic. Xenoblade 2, I think, is my favorite soundtrack of all time. They know what they're doing and who to hire. And Chrono Cross is no exception.
I mean, Yasunori Mitsuda, this is the game that made him, like, Xenosaga Episode 1 is, like, such an evolution from this, even, where it's all orchestrated and stuff, but the amount of stuff he achieves with this soundtrack by itself is just, it's really all good. Celtic, it's all acoustic, it's all, like, it really embodies, like, the seaside tropical nature of the game, like, the art direction and the music direction are so hand in hand. But then they also throw in all the other, like, Chrono Trigger themes, and then and it's like you play Radical Dreamers, and you're like, oh my god, so much of this is just orchestrated versions of Radical Dreamers.
Yeah, which I love. I mean, we played Radical Dreamer not too long ago, and I think that was perfect to cover that and then go into this to have that perception too.
Like having kids theme come back and having the battle theme. I think the battle theme is better than Radical Dreamers, but that's a different story. But like having all of that kind of set the standard, and like, oh, okay, this is really what they tried to do, and like it's so good. Oh my god. Like, just like part of it has to do with the PlayStation being, not able. Like, it was a CD-based console, but you weren't expecting like full orchestrated stuff back then. It was still kind of limited in like its MIDI tones and all that stuff. So having like songs where it basically is an acoustic guitar, and you can hear like the sliding of the neck of the guitar up and down, as they're playing the song. It's just such a nice detail and something that you weren't really expecting before, and it's still impressive.
The music is so great. I mean, I listen to it often. Like most of this game I played with sound. There were just parts where I would mute just because. But like I just thought it's still good. I mean, to me, Trigger music is better to me. But then again, music for me is very much centered in time and place. I've noticed for some reason. Like if like for video game music, like I play a lot of games on this show mute. I don't care about music in games. I don't care about music as much in general unless it's something from a particular time in my life. And this game came and went, but the music's still great. Like Time Scar, I freaking love Time Scar, but that also was a song that me and my friends would play constantly, and it stuck with me, and it's such a great song. But like other music, I mean, all the music's good in this game. Like it's not Trigger to me, because Trigger has that emotional connection, but I did like it when I heard Trigger music again, because I could hear it like, hey, wait a second, that's Trigger.
Yes. And the ways they put Trigger into it, the ways they kind of have the song switch over and all of a sudden there's a theme that you recognize, or something like it's also emblematic of how the game works. It's like you have something new, and then there's the connection that you're looking for.
Oh, I think a brief thing
all works in concert together.
Quick thing I want to mention that I forgot to mention. When this game starts off in a dream sequence too, which puts you with you, kid, and a random ass character out of the many like 30 some characters you can unlock in this game, which I think is a really cool concept to throw you off, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, now you're in the real game, where it starts off just like Trigger. Mm-hmm. He wakes up, opens the shades.
That was definitely, again, changing your perspective, changing what your expectations, like what's going on. But of course, always the trope of character wakes up in the beginning of the game is used so many times.
I like it though.
Square.
It works
Square.
here because Chrono Trigger is like the one that people reference now.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I can't say more because it does spoil another game we talked about. But there's another game that ties into that whole trope of waking up, which down the road we could definitely talk about. But with music, I was gonna say a lot of it comes down to familiarity, and I feel like this is one of those soundtracks where once you play through and you enjoy it, if you heard a song, it will immediately bring you back to that area. Like you're just in your mind, like, oh, I remember that zone. I remember that battle. Like it has that familiar hook that Square music is known for, because I think Square produces some of the best music, period.
Oh God, yes.
And it's definitely up there in terms of Square soundtracks. It's up there among the best. But you touched on something I did want to bring up, and I was curious your thoughts, because this is a controversial topic for a lot of people. The characters. There's so many characters. I know Final Fantasy VI. Some people say there's too many characters. They don't all get development. What do you guys think about having so many characters that you need to play, I think, 3 times to recruit them all and have the entire party? They all don't get the same development. It's impossible to have equal character development amongst that many characters. But I was curious what your thoughts on were that, because that was a controversial thing back then.
Too many.
I do think it's unfortunate that there are so many, because it does really cut down the amount of development that they each get. That being said, I do like this idea because it kind of comes from their original ideas of having almost anyone be recruitable. And that's not the way it is now, but having so many people be recruitable is such a cool idea that I like. So I'm kind of split on that. Like, I like the idea that you can kind of invade these people's stories and kind of see these bits and pieces of their life, and all of a sudden they're with you for a bit. Like, oh, what's the guy's name? The artist kid. I liked his little story beat. Yeah, I like his little story beats, and I was really intrigued by the relationship with his father and kind of going to the other timelines, seeing how they lived and everything.
I didn't use them at all, but yeah, it is cool how they have, like, they give every character a little something. Some, of course, obviously more, but
this is something I had a gripe with the game on, and I like games with big cast of characters that you can recruit. I have no problem with that. I hate games with big cast of characters where you can only use like 3 people, because it's like everybody else is just bench. What's the point of having them?
You like Suikoden?
Yeah, Suikoden is ever famous for it, and even 6. But 6 at least uses those characters towards the end. There's the several areas where you need to actually make multiple parties, and you have to play through dungeons with multiple parties to help. So there, it makes sense. They utilize those extra characters. Yes, they don't all get the same development, which is sad, but the majority of them do. In this, I feel the majority of them don't get much development, and many of them are just sat in the sidelines. And I'm the type of gamer where, or at least with RPGs, where I'll make a party and I'm comfortable with that party, and I don't like to shake it up because it works. So any new character I get, like, oh, that's great, you're in the back line. Like, this is my party. This is what I'm going to beat the game with. And I do. I'll beat the game with whatever. Well, I got a healer, I got a tank, I got DPS, whatever, and I'm good with that. And I could be missing out on some amazing combos and amazing crazy things, and that's fine. It obviously adds replayability, but that's the kind of gamer I'm at. I just like I like comfortability. I like what works. And I feel like
I'm like that too. Yeah,
I think a lot of people are.
Yeah. But what I like about this game, though, is that this game, by not having anyone be super important other than Surge for a while, like, you really can just explore and do whatever, because nothing is tied to anybody. Yes, the star levels are one thing, but the fact that you can respec and redo anybody's attack pattern
aren't like, you're just like, oh, I leveled up this character for so long. Why would I want to use somebody else? It doesn't matter in this game, because when you get somebody else, like, they already are leveled up because of the star system. Sure, they might gain a little bit of extra HP, but I would never pick a random character. Okay, now I got to go do 10, 20, an hour worth of random battles to get them caught up. They're just fine. Maybe a couple of random battles on the way of wherever you're headed, and they'll be ready for the boss fight. It was, and I think I didn't appreciate that when I was younger, but I really appreciated that now. Okay, you're making it so I can play this game however I want to play it, with whoever I want to play it, and
But at the same time, that dilutes them as characters, because they're just
that is the trade-off.
They are literally just a graphical swap. It's like a glamour, really. And if you ask people like myself, for example, hey, who do you remember from 20 years ago when you played this game? Who do you remember? Obviously Surge, obviously Kid, obviously Harl, obviously Lynx. Those 4 are, I think, the main characters anyways, and you obviously remember them. Of the rest of the characters, looking through, the only one I really remember was Nikki. And I just remember because it was the 2-color pant legs were just like, what's weird? And it was just a weird thing. And that's the only character I remember out of all the characters 20 years later. I'm not saying like right after you finish the game, you'll remember those characters. But 20 years later, for only one character to even stick in my mind, I can name all the Final Fantasy VI characters. I remember them all. I went on journeys with them all. They were all different enough with their own stories. And I think that's a negative for this game. I feel like they tried to do too much without enough time to develop properly.
Yes. And like I can point to others like Lena. I remember because Lena is kind of the moral of the world in a way.
But you also just played it this year. 20 years from now, will you remember Lena?
Yeah. I also remember the shorthand of like Poshul is just Ricky from Xenoblade Chronicles, basically.
Yeah.
That is where a lot of that. Well, not there's also
I don't like
some
that dog.
Xenogears, but I love that they insist on having these like dumb characters be around, and like having 45 characters also gives them a lot of.
Not dumb.
I have no idea.
He is Tingle. He is Tingle, basically.
He is not Tingle. He's awesome.
He is. His own town hates him.
Yes, his hometown hates him.
His family hates him. His children don't even know him, basically.
Play Future Connected.
All right. I played Future Connected.
His children.
I know there's a little bit of difference, but in the basic Xenoblade, Ricky's a loser.
Okay.
But he's a
God, I need to touch that series one day. One day I'm going to. I mean, I just got to make myself do it.
Ricky will save the day.
But anyway,
you're right. The characters aren't as important in this game. Like I knew who I wanted. Like I wanted Glenn. Like my whole goal in this game was get Glenn, and Glenn's gonna be part of my main team because I like Glenn. And then I wanted Grobik. But I wanted Grobik for a dumb reason.
Sorry, but there's also an opportunity then that the game allows you to like have these random characters come through that are just like weird and like one's like basically like a luchador type guy. Yeah. He's a priest also.
I use Greco this playthrough actually.
See, and I like those quote unquote dumb characters. I like those characters that like hidden characters or bonus characters and stuff like that. I think those become memorable when they're special. But when you have an entire roster and most of them are those kind of dumb characters, they again lose their specialness because they just fit in.
It's more about what you connect with. I mean, yes, there are characters who are better than others. Like from what I was reading, like they actually have ranks of the characters of how their stats are. Like if you do the side quest for Glenn, or the one side quest in this game, Glenn ends up becoming one of the top characters in the game, like the second most powerful character. He wasn't for me because I couldn't beat Dario, but if you do that, he's
yeah. There's a way to beat Dario. That's like easy.
Are you talking about where you try to cheese him, where you do an element, you hit him with low level elements, so he'll counter you?
There's a way to do it. There was a way to do it where he didn't really hurt you that much. But yeah, I think that might have been it.
It wasn't. Like I was reading online, they said like hit him with like level 1 elements, level 1 spells that don't take much, so that way he'll counter with stupid spells. But I just couldn't outlast him long enough because when he would do one of his major attacks, he would just wipe the floor with me. Like he'd kill me.
You needed to grind more. Duh.
Yeah, I know. That's what bothered me.
That being said, even if I don't remember them right away, like when I look at this list, it's like, oh yeah, like I think the story does set it up so that any character with a portrait you can basically recruit at some point. So seeing characters like Karsh come up again and again, and it's like, oh, I could probably get Karsh at some point. How does that happen?
And Karsh is one of the S level characters in this game too, by the way.
Right, and there's an element of that makes it really cool and makes it a different kind of RPG where you're kind of wondering these other things of like, ooh, when can I recruit this person? Oh, what do I need to do to do this? What do I need to do to get Skelly back together?
I did that. I didn't use them, but I did that. I also used Dragey for the first time. I haven't played this game in years, but I never used Dragey. I love Dragons. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to use the baby Dragon at one point just because I wanted somebody who wasn't. I wanted Red Element, I guess, or I just wanted someone else. So I'm like, I'm going to, and worked perfectly. Like I was just able to pick them up, bring them along for a little bit, then throw them off to the side, and never use them again.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't like that in games. Like I'm with Barry. I'd rather have an RPG where I have my certain characters. I mean, I love 6. I can't complain with 6 with the way 6 does it, but it was okay. Like I grew into it. I grew into the fact that this game, like, choose whoever you want. It really doesn't matter. What do you like?
And
who
that
do you
just
think it
sucks.
looks cool?
You said the keywords. It doesn't matter, and
Yeah,
that's
and-
I think the biggest downfall to it.
It was, but at the same time, I just picked the people I thought were cool looking, and that was my team. Like
I think we all
Greco,
did that.
used. I know it's not, and that's not me. Like that's not normally me in a game, but that's just this game let me do that and rewarded me.
This game
for
will
doing
let
that.
you do things differently. It allows you to kind of break your ideas of what you want games to be, which is good and bad. I like that. There is it forces you to kind of do other stuff.
Yeah,
but it doesn't feel it forces is a strong word, but it creates an environment in which alternate ideas for playing RPGs are allowed.
Now, we touched on the fact that there's so many characters and all that, but what we didn't touch on is the fact, and I mentioned it, but I didn't hear your thoughts on it, is that it takes like 3 playthroughs to be able to recruit everybody. What do you think about that aspect?
Then they do let you do the fast forward stuff once you beat the game.
Yeah, but is that your grind?
I personally don't like that fact. I mean, because there's really one point early in this game where the game has 3 different paths that affect which character you get: Guile, Nikki, or Pierre. And I did the Guile path this playthrough, and that's really that's where it's defined. Because everything else you can get, there's only one other path where you either choose to save Kid and you get a few characters, or you choose not to save Kid and then you get a few other characters. But really, I mean, it's that original path that is the one that really decides it.
I picked Nikki. That's the only one I remembered.
I went Guile because I knew it was supposed to be Magus and it wasn't Magus, but I'm like, I'm going Guile.
Also, Pierre's such a loser.
I've done Pierre and I've done Nikki before in the past when I played this game. Because back in the day, I played this game a couple times, but I don't remember anything about it. But I knew I did Nikki, and I remember as a kid, I was confused. Is Nikki a guy? Is Nikki a girl? What the hell is going on here? As a kid, I remember that. Because 13-year-old Michael was like, what? But I was like, I just wanted Guile because it was supposed to be Magus, and I love Magus. So. Yeah.
Now, the one thing about Pierre's route that I do want to see that I've not yet is that there's salt and pepper, of course.
And ketchup.
Yes, with Pierre, you get ketchup, which I have not seen before.
Yeah, he's a boss you only fight if you go that path.
Right, and I really like to see that at some point. Because, kind of like Biggs and Wedge in Final Fantasy, Salt and Pepper are just kind of like these 2 dudes who show up every once in a while and are kind of stupid.
Mm-hmm. They show up a lot more than I thought they would.
Yeah.
I fought them a couple times because there are side quests in the game. They're not like deep side quests, but they're like, oh, go to this place with this character and you'll get their level 3 tech. There was a lot of stuff like that, and I did all the ones the characters I had just because I'm like, why not? I'm never gonna play this game again probably, and I might get a Steam achievement, so I don't care about. So why not? That was my thought pattern.
You'll replay this for episode 2000, I'm sure.
Episode 2000, oh man.
That would be a recovered episode, sir. But yeah, you never. Hey, with this show, you never freaking know. I mean, again, I just need to really emphasize the fact that this game is out again is so nice, and I played this in the Steam Deck, and God, it was nice. It was so nice to pick it up, do a couple battles, sometimes do a little bit of story. Put it in sleep mode and put it down. Yes, I know you can do it with the Switch too, but you can't play ROMs on the Switch, so not like I can do here. But
I'm very curious what they'll put out next, because I know Live Alive also came out recently.
Oh, Live Alive is great.
I need to Live Alive.
I need to buy that, but I don't like Switch that much, and I don't like paying $6 for a game.
What?
I'm not a Switch fan.
I need to buy it as well.
I don't know why. If they release it on Steam, which I know they're not going to. If they did, I would buy it.
I think Nintendo published it.
Yeah, that's my issue with it.
I was gonna get Live Alive.
Why? They paid
then
for
I got.
I don't like Nintendo.
What? Why?
Pricing. I don't like it that their games never go lower in price.
Because they don't need to. They keep selling. If you sold 32 million units and you're still selling, why would you lower the price? You only put things on sale
make this random guy named Mike who has a podcast happy.
Yeah.
That's very fair.
No, I know. I completely understand the business standpoint. They're doing the thing that makes sense for them because it makes money. I get it, but I don't like it because I'm a cheap gamer. And I love buying tons and tons of games.
So you would rather Live Alive never get an HD 2D port at all?
No, I'm happy it exists.
Because Nintendo paid to have it happen.
No, I know. I'm glad it exists. I'm really happy they made it. I'm not going to end up probably buying it. But that's not.
You know what?
I might. I probably will. I just have. When I find it for $30 on sale someday.
Play the demo because the demo carries over and see how you like the demo. Because the demo.
I played the original game. I love the original game.
demo lets you play 3 of the at least the start of 3 of the.
I mean, I know I'll love it because I love the SNES version of it, which I covered on the show, and nobody listened to. But like, I mean, I'm a big fan of the game. I just at some point, I can't buy games for full price.
I'm gonna buy Live Alive today because of this conversation.
You should. It's a really good RPG, and I am gonna cover it at some point the Switch version because I covered the SNES version, but I want now that the Switch is out, like
so
I want to
beautiful.
cover.
It's like
That's what we covered for you.
And that would actually be I think it's a different enough game that I might just call it in our episode. So we'll see.
Like I got Diofield Chronicles instead, which no one's talking about.
I have it. I just don't. I'm not a big real-time strategy fan. Like not real-time strategy. I like RTS. Strategy RPG. That's it. Like I'm not a
the
big
disappointing thing is how Square just drops games constantly that like it's like where are these games coming from that you're not talking about them?
They just did Various Day Life, which came from App Arcade, is now on Switch and is getting an Asian English. The Diofield just came out. Star Ocean, which is fantastic, that I'm playing now, just came out. You've got
Free Elysium.
You've got Harvestella next week. You've got Crisis Core, in a month. Like
God, I keep forgetting that's coming out.
Like
I kind of kick myself.
Dropped and like they're not talking about them. They're just like expecting people to just buy them, I guess.
Yeah.
I kicked myself for Crisis Core because I should have reviewed.
Remembering that Valkyrie Elysium's coming out. That game's not going to sell.
That one just came out too. Like Square is releasing like 8 games in the span of like 2.5 months.
And like it's almost as bad as when they would just do the random bad game every year that they used to do. Like one year it would be Balan Wonderworld, and one year it'd be
I really want to play Balan Wonderland.
I do want to play it,
but it's terrible. It's terrible.
I know, but that's why I want to play it.
But like they do like Left Alive one year, and that's like the front mission spin-off with Yoji Shikawa doing art.
I keep meaning to buy that on Steam, but it's $9. I want it to be $5.
It's not even worth $5.
I know, that's why I want it to be $5. At least I'll feel less bad.
Like I'm interested in Diofield Chronicle because it's made by Lan Kars, who did the Etrian Odyssey series and Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey. But like, it disappoints me that they don't talk about it. Like we're not talking about Chrono Cross right now.
No, I noticed that too, but that's fine.
It's an offshoot because it's still Square. It's still the same, company. But but it's true. Square, and that's just it. Like Square has gone. I feel like they're overcompensating, right? Like the Super Nintendo era, they had a lot of games, and the PlayStation era, they had a lot of games, and then they slowed down with the PS2 era and the PS3 era, and the PS4
really
started to come out. But like ever since the Switch came out, it's like Square's like, let's do everything. Like almost everything goes to the Switch, which we need the Final Fantasy pixel remasters to go. I don't know why they're not there. It's stupid.
I mean, I can play them on my Switch, on my version of the Switch.
You can play the Steam version on your Steam Deck, yes. But it should be on There's no reason those games
should be. No, I 100% agree with you. I can't get over how much. Again, the Steam Deck made this episode for me really possible because I was able to play this game wherever I wanted to. Because I know I said earlier in the show, I beat this game in a week, which is not the way to play Chrono Cross, by the way. Do not play this game in a week. It's not.
Play it in 3 weeks and didn't do 50 hours instead.
Oh God, playing this in a freaking week I'm impressed that I was able to finish this game I actually finished this game on Thursday.
Jesus, man.
Before the episode we record on Sundays. Like I was impressed that I was able to finish this game when I did.
That is beyond impressive. I honestly hate crunches, which is I'm actually doing a crunch now because there's like 100 games coming out in 2 weeks that I want to play. And I'm trying to play through them. I'm doing Star Ocean now, like I'm trying to get through it. Like Live Alive, I did in a week. I did a chapter a day.
But that game's not that long.
No, but it's like I felt like that pressure because I did that because that came out right before Xenoblade 3. And I'm like, I need to do this before Xenoblade 3 drops because when Xenoblade 3, I'm like, I'm just playing that game. And that one took me like over 100 hours, and I gladly played over 100 hours of that one. That one's just worth it. But Chrono Cross, I don't think I could do in a week. I mean,
it's also nice that it's not 100-hour super. Like this game, like I did pretty much everything but beat one optional boss.
And how long did it take you?
Impressive.
20 hours.
20 hours to do that.
20 hours, yeah.
Okay.
Didn't take long. I mean, there's not in one playthrough. This game is not super long. Like, I mean, and I played a fast forward though. I did, yes, I had a guide. But like, still, I mean, I played many games for the show, and some games, even with a guide, can take forever just because of how much grinding or how long a game is. And since this game has no grinding, if you just use a guide and know what to do, you can just blow through it. And I had a great time.
But see, I mean, as long as you had a good time, like I hate blowing through games. I'm not saying like do 100%, but like I just hate
even
I do it all the time. I do it to myself. I just hate doing it.
I mean, before this podcast, I started a list a few years before the podcast started where I always keep track of every game I beat in a year, and I just always played through games quickly, because I buy so many cheap games that I was always like, I want to beat this quick so I can get on my next game, like so I can experience as many games I possibly can experience. Is my whole life plan apparently at this point, and the podcast makes that easier. But that was my way of life even before this. So the whole grind, I love the grind of it. I don't recommend it, but yeah. So I mean, I get it. Like at one time I would have been that same way, but nowadays I'm like, no, I want to beat a game quick. I want to experience the game. I try to do as much as I can that isn't too grindy, but mainly I just go for the main games in most games. Chrono Cross, I try to experience everything Chrono Cross I could. I just could not beat Dario for the life of me.
But are you compelled now to play through it again and do a different path to get different characters?
No, not at all. I thought about it. I started New Game Plus on my Steam Deck, and then I went, I don't want to play this again, and I put it down.
That's how I felt, because I toyed around with the Switch version, but I'm like, I don't really want to go deep into this again right now, because sometimes I will. Sometimes when I did Persona Q, and it's Persona Q, so it's Persona 3 and 4 technically. You can play as the characters of each. I'm gonna do both. I'm gonna be crazy and do both.
I like it.
Or when I do Wolfenstein: The New Order, I gotta play all the timelines.
It depends on the game. I mean,
but yeah, it does depend.
I just couldn't. I mean, I enjoyed Chrono Cross, but I didn't enjoy it enough to want to go through it again. Maybe if I had time, if I didn't have a podcast and I could just leisurely play, maybe then. But also, one thing I really want to stress about this game that we hadn't talked about with the Radical Dreamers, they released it at $20, which was perfect.
I don't think they did a physical release in this country, did they?
No, that was $40 for Play Asia.
Yeah, they did the Asian English release, but
everyone's importing it.
Yeah, because people want the physical, because when the shop eventually dies, which it will, Nintendo and Sony both shut down shop, then the game is lost. So this
which is crazy that
observed.
They just don't release it anyway at this point.
Here's why. And I'll tell you why. The minimums in America for Switch are 5,000 units, which this game will easily sell 5,000. But the minimums over in Asia are smaller, and there's a smaller population. So if they were to appease the American market, getting into Best Buys and Amazon and Walmarts and et cetera, they would probably have to print, a couple 100,000 carts. Where, Southeast Asia, which is its own smaller region, they could probably get away with 5,000 to 10,000. So they printed in Southeast Asia only because they only have to print 5,000 to 10,000. Right. That takes care of that entire market, and they know Americans are going to import it. And if enough Americans import it that they sell out, they only print another 1,000 or 2. They don't have to do that 100,000 investment on a game they don't have as much confidence in, which is why Square has a ton of Asian English physicals only there, like Romancing Saga 2 and 3. The new Romancing Saga remake is getting one too. Various Daylife just got announced for Asian English. Chrono Cross, Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 triple pack is Asian English. Final Fantasy 7 and 8 got an European and an Asian English. Final Fantasy 9 got Asian English. So there's tons of them. Even Final Fantasy 10, which is a weird thing where they did 10 and 10-2. In America, we got that, but 10-2 is a download code. It's really only 10 as a physical.
Oh, that's shitty.
Yes, but
I never knew that because I own multiple copies of that physical.
Oh no, only the Switch version. The PlayStation versions, it's full, but the Switch version was a download code. However, Bandai Namco also released that game in Asian English. For whatever reason, Bandai Namco did it, where Final Fantasy 10 and 10-2 were on the cart. So if you import that version, you get them both complete on the Switch. It's so weird. The collecting now is just bizarre with Square.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not a collector anymore. I just buy everything on Steam, and I used to be a big time, but now I'm all digital.
I like collecting.
Like poison.
No, I know, and you're the perfect guy to be talking about this because you are part of a company that publishes, niche games or digital-only games physically for people.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you work for? I didn't know this.
Yeah,
I forgot to have plug because I completely forgot.
I work with Premium Edition Games.
Oh, that's fun.
So we do physical releases of digital-only titles for the Switch and the PlayStation.
That's cool.
And there's a lot of titles that don't get that treatment. And a lot of people don't know about these games because the Steam store is just like the Nintendo eShop or the PS store, where it's just there's 1,000 games every week and things just get swallowed. So we get to bring attention. We have 2 games out right now, Love 3 and Eagle Island Twist, that are on pre-order from Screenwave, who does things like with the Angry Video Game Nerd. And next month we have Raji and They Bleed Pixels coming out. And like those are like people who have like, I've never even heard of these games, watch these trailers and go, oh my God, I didn't know these games existed. I want to play these games now. I'm like, yeah, that's why we do this.
And since we talked, you actually got me to buy one of your games, not physical, of course, but I bought Robot Named Fight on Steam.
Oh, it's such a good game.
I haven't played it yet, but I got it. I'm like one day I'm gonna boot this up because of you. I bought.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I hope you enjoy it.
Me who's like my bag for so long when I did a blog was like the 3DS, and so it's like I'll hear something. Oh, Fragrance Story. I'm gonna buy that.
A terrible game. Super short.
I don't care, but I have it.
I have it too. I have the 3DS set, so I had to buy it.
That's impressive, sir.
It's the 3DS is such a good system.
I did not play enough 3DS, and it's one of my regrets.
Etrian Odyssey is such a good series.
Not a big regret, but it's a regret.
Covering a 3DS in like 2018, 2019 was such a wild time because there's so few games coming up, but they were all bangers pretty much. Like Yokai Watch 3 is so good.
And then we don't get Yokai Watch 4. Like, what the hell?
Right. Or Yokai Watch Blasters too. But like Yokai Watch 3 now is like $200 or $300 for a cart. And it's like that game was so good it did not deserve to be set out to die like it was.
I need to get into 3DS. I keep telling myself that one day I want to hack a 3DS because it doesn't sound that hard, so I could then play all old 3DS games that I never got around to.
Well, the eShop is about to go down, so
yeah,
it's coming. I'm this stuff like that. I don't like to do until everything is completely dead to where you can no longer buy it. It no longer exists. Then I'm comfortable going down that road because if it's still buyable, I'm not. I feel wrong, so I wait. Like that's just how I am personally. I don't want to pirate stuff that I can buy because I can buy it. I'll buy it. Like Steam, like I'll buy a game then play the emulation just because. Like I originally bought this. Like my plan was to buy this and then play the ROM, but the Radical Dreamers edition was just so awesome because I could fast forward everything, and it was so easy to play. I was like, fuck it, I'll play this. I want to support where I can, even if I want, because I want save state.
Well, that's the thing is that when you support, you're supporting the developers. Like we tell people, if you like a game like Robot Named Fight, for example, if you buy our version, the developer actually makes more money than the digital version.
But
you're helping them more.
I don't want it. Plus, you don't have a physical version that will fit in my Steam Deck, sir. So
no, I do not. We do not. Physical. There are no physicals that fit in the Steam Deck.
I know.
That doesn't exist, sir.
I have a Switch. I have a Switch Lite upstairs, actually, above me with my wife's, but because that was my original plan. Before I was originally going to play this, I was going to buy this on Switch, and then I bought the Steam version, and then I got a Steam Deck. But like, I feel like also playing this game handheld, this is a great game to play handheld, Chrono Cross, because it's a bit like, you can put it to sleep. It's the kind of game where you could, play a little bit, put it down, play a little bit more, put it down, because none of the areas feel super long either. Yeah. And the game is constantly moving from point to point.
I can see that.
I don't know. I loved it handheld. I love playing it, picking it up, play for 20 minutes, play for 10 minutes, do a couple battles, do a boss fight, turn it off, put it in sleep mode, put it down, pick it back up, play a little bit more, finish an area, do a few fights. Like it worked perfectly for that for me on a personal level.
I can see that because there's a lot of games, I think, that cater to that portability, especially of that era, the PS1 and 64 era, where you, with the ability to save anywhere. Now, Chrono Cross obviously has the save points, which doesn't help as much, but I feel more people, as you get older, can play more comfortably with it being portable.
Yeah, because
we all have lives.
Yeah, and life gets busy as hell, unfortunately.
Life gets busy. I know people who are like, I'm a diehard PlayStation and Xbox guy, and then they have kids, and they're like, now I can't play anything but the Switch because I need portability, and I'm introduced to a whole new library of games, and now they're addicted. Now the kids are like, oh, my kids are old enough now I can play docked and all that stuff, and I'm still playing Switch. Like, just got
the answer is to not have children.
Oh, well. Yes, kids. That's my one bane about children. It's like it takes away from my game playing time. Like, no,
it changes your life completely in good ways and bad ways. But yes, I have a 15-year-old that doesn't live with me, but like it's that same idea of like, it changes your life so much. It's wonderful, but it does change your life in ways that is not pleasant always. So
it's not. It is good and bad. The goods outweigh the bad, but there is some bad, unfortunately. Just like anything. Everything has, consequences. Or
I always make the joke in my life where people like, because like if you lost your legs, what would you do? I'd be like, well, I would just play a lot of video games.
Yeah.
Okay. It's what I do anyway. So if I'm stuck in a chair, like,
I would have an excuse to not go out, even more so than I do now.
Yeah. Like I'm like, okay, in my job, I work from home now, and I'm a guy over the phone. I'm like, I would just keep this job, and I could do it. I don't want to lose my legs, but if I did, I wouldn't. I could at least still do things I love.
It's one of those things where you don't appreciate what you have until it's gone, kind of deal as well. Like you don't appreciate your free time when you're a kid nearly as much until you get into the workforce and you have kids and family, and you're like, oh man, I remember the days when I could just wake up and I could play video games and I had nothing to do for the whole day, and now it's like I have all this responsibility, and like that's when I did Chrono Cross. Like that brings me back to one of those times, because I said it was like Christmas break from college, and I didn't, I wasn't working at the time, so I literally got to just sit there and play all until I finished, and it was great. And this is one of those games that brings me back to better times. And it's true. It's like, it's something special. That era was just a very special era for me, and this is one of those games that touches on it.
I'm glad. Oh no, one thing I want to talk about this game that we haven't talked about yet: summons. This game has summons, which I never used because I didn't care, but it has.
I tried to use the monster summoning one, I guess, a little bit, but.
You have to use 3 spells of the same element in order to then cast a summon spell.
Oh,
So there's a whole field effect. Right. Where I didn't really use it, I would just alter it so that the enemy never had the same full field effect that whatever their color was for their element, because I didn't want them to have any advantage over me.
Mm-hmm.
But that was all I ever did with it. I never really cared personally otherwise. This wasn't.
Honestly, I don't think I ever used a summon.
You don't have to. The only point. Okay. This is one of my irritations with the game, but I don't know if you guys noticed this or ran into it. Okay, did you notice that the best equipment in this game is called the rainbow equipment?
Yeah.
And in order to get that, you need shiny sand, shiny this, shiny that. Well, the only way to get the shiny stuff is you have to kill enemies with summon. So that's the only reason you need to use summons is you're supposed to go to certain areas in this game, get the innate element to a color, cast a summon, and then all the enemies you kill with a summon will then turn into a type of element, a type of item that you need to then make the best equipment in the game.
Sounds like a lot of work. That's not.
It is. I didn't do it. You also have to get rainbow shell pieces, which you only get them here and there, and those are all in all in treasure chests or random place. You just got to click A somewhere. Like there's one in the first town, in the town Arnieville, the town you start with. There's one in the first salesman cart. You have to check her cart after she leaves later on when you go back to that town near the end of the game, and there's just a rainbow shell there, which I remembered as a kid. The guy told me to press that button, and I pressed that button multiple times, and all of a sudden I did it. And I'm like, oh, there it is. My memory was right.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool hidden stuff that you can just find as well. Okay. Like trying to get to was it Karsh's chest, I think, in the mansion?
Yes.
Where he's like, no, don't go in there. No, seriously, don't go in there. Don't go in there. And you just have to keep being like, I want to.
And there's Zoa's chest that you have to come back with Zoa to open it, and you get Zoa's last tech ability.
Or like getting the Hecarim bone in the beginning village to get Pauschul, or there's that one like hole or barrel in the bar that you just got to keep checking as well.
Yeah. And then it opens up and the guy gives you something.
Yeah.
And I love the fact it's a Hecarim bone that you need, because Hecarim is one of the bosses in Chrono Trigger that you fight in 1000 AD, so that made me happy. Hecarim is also on the cover of Chrono Trigger for no reason, but hey, neither here nor there. But, so those are things that made me smile this playthrough a lot.
He's in the animated cutscene too, like for the opening for Chrono Trigger, isn't he? The PlayStation one?
I believe so.
I thought he was.
He's a stupid beast. One ball. I mean, I don't know, but no, I'm trying to think anything else that we should mention. Oh, like you can also like choose to save kid or let kid die. You have a lot of things where you have to go to the alternate worlds and bring your characters to meet them other selves from the different world. Even though now that we played through this game, I really got to say another world is the true world and home world should be another world, but neither here nor there.
Yeah, well, that's true.
But you're coming at that from an objective perspective when the whole game is about not doing that.
Yeah,
I know.
But that also makes it more like an eye opener, because like the whole time you're playing it from Serge's perspective, so the home world is the true world.
Yes.
And then to find out that you've been living in a lie world is that much cooler, because it's like, hey, everything you know is wrong. And I love that. I love that. Again, that's a pull the wool out from under, and
I do too. I really like places that this game went in this playthrough. I like the fact that the whole villain Lynx is actually being controlled by a frickin' computer.
Isn't Lynx also your father? Like,
yes.
Your father got possessed by fate. Like that whole thing, it's like it's your father literally who killed you and then trying to kill you again, but then take your body so that it's like, what the heck?
And the whole idea is that they just happened to arrive at the island in the 10-minute span when the computer system shut down.
Yeah, that was like the circumstance. Literally fate. It was fate. See?
Yes. Which, and all this talks kind of gives like a premonition or like a preclusion to Final Fantasy X's storyline then in a way.
Yeah, kind of does, doesn't it?
Fate, sin, it's all related, connected.
And I love the fact that you constantly have, them saying stuff like they keep saying, "Oh, well, Fate did this. Fate, F-A-T-E, all in capital." I'm like, why do you keep saying Fate in capitals, guys? Like, I'm like, oh, that's why. Because it's computer.
Awesome.
It's really good. And I love the fact that Fate is Mother Brain from Chrono Trigger too. Like they, the evil computer that tried to kill you and kill all the humans is the idiots put it in charge again because they didn't know, because in their time that didn't happen. It's cool. There's so many cool references. That's
the 4-dimensional chess.
This game works. And I mean, like we said a little bit earlier, yes, you have a lot of characters that a lot of them seem useless and you don't get in touch, but it's fine that they're like, I mean, I love Suikoden as a series for one. And I was fine with the aspect of just random ass characters that are just there. Didn't bother me. But I mean, would have liked, more good characters, but it's fine. Not that type of game.
Well, that's the problem is when you have 40 characters to do, you're going to have some really good ones, but eventually those ideas start to let's get crazy and let's make some one just to fill the quota. You get lesser characters.
So I should ask, what was everybody's favorite character in this game? Besides Surge or Kid or any of the main ones, like, not besides those two or Lynx or Harl. For me, Glenn, because I have a really soft spot for Frog Glenn in Chrono Trigger. I always have and I always will, because that game just means so much to me. And the fact that he has the same name and looks, I was suckered in. Oh, what about you, Dominic?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I thought Van's storyline was interesting. He's not the best character in the world, but I liked Van. I liked the complicated subplot with like the captain and the mermaids.
Fargo, yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I mean, I also want to say like Guile, but I feel like that's one of the main characters. So I like the idea that Guile is Magus and that like he's secretly like the main character of the meta story, right? Of like, he's there in Radical Dreamers, he's there in Chrono Trigger, he's there in Chrono Cross, basically. I guess we should talk about probably just like the moment it all comes together at the orphanage too, since we should kind of wrapping up. That's the moment where it all finally is like, oh, they are going hard on Chrono Trigger shit, and it's a flashback to Kid as a child and talking about her adoption by Luca and how the orphanage that Luca starts is set on fire and Luca dies, and you get to play the sequence of like saving the children that are there and saving Kid as a child.
I never have, but I know you can.
You didn't play that part?
No, because you have to beat Dario for that part.
Really? I forgot about that.
And I couldn't beat Dario. Because I just wasn't.
Good moment.
I know. I saw it in my cutscene or my, looking at my guide. And I'm like, damn it, I want to do this. I've never done it because I thought as a kid I beat Dario too, but I realized as a kid I never beaten Dario.
Because it's a whole huge flashback sequence, and it's so
connected.
It's really emotional because it's like the moment where everything is like coming together, and you're in the Chrono Trigger world again.
I know, and I wanted to do that so bad. I just couldn't. Well, the trick to beating Dario is you have to steal a rare item from one boss, the Black Dragon. You have Fargo, and you're supposed to. What the guy told me to do, which I ignored them, is try to steal the fight when the fight starts. If you fail, run away. Try again, fail, run away. And that's what. And I'm like, I don't care about the black plate. Well, it turned out I did, because that's how you beat Dario, essentially, because then he can't kill you.
Oh, a nice thing to notice about this game too is that you can run away from any fight.
Yeah,
that's so weird.
It is weird. You can run away from boss fights, everything. I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. Sorry, you were saying, Dominic, more about the orphanage?
But then it's like, then you have to go back in time as Surge, and then like you have the emotional moment where it's like, oh, that's how Kid and Surge met, technically, is that you saved her as a child.
And that's why she remembers you, kind of, in a broad way. Like, she doesn't know who you are exactly, but you are familiar.
Right. And it's a really cool moment, and then it kind of like, because then you get to see all the little things that they do, like Kid making artwork of Chrono and Luca and everybody. You get to see it like kind of plastered around the place, and then like that kind of then ties into that's like the emotional like level you need to be then to like kind of get back into like the Shala stuff of like Shala kind of being this footnote of Chrono Trigger, like, oh yeah, what happened to her? And now that she's like the main driving force of like trying to control is it's like fate or whatever, and like having Shala as part of that, and having that be like the final sequence of fighting basically Shala, is such a like that emotional stuff is really what ties back in and makes it such an impactful ending.
And it was the Chrono Trigger DS version that added the time to. They don't call him the time devour, they call him something else, but they added that boss fight in the end of Chrono Trigger that you have to beat the game the second time to get that in New Game Plus. Right. And I love the fact that they did tie that in because it makes this matter more to me now.
And the final boss of Cross is a weird rhythm game basically.
How did you? Okay, so you beat it the correct way because like
I did both ways.
Okay, I didn't. I only did there's one way where you have to cast certain spells in a certain order, hope he doesn't get a turn, and cast a spell and mess with your order, and then cast the Chrono Cross element, which then just automatically kills him.
Right, like that's the true ending.
Yes.
You can also just beat him,
which is what I did as a kid.
Yeah, but doing like you have to basically do the musical notation of the song "Life," I think it is, and you got to just because each of the elements are given to you as like a representation of like a music note.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't because I just followed what the guy told me to do. I didn't know it was actually like what was a reference to or okay, that is really cool.
Because there's that crystalline sound that happens, and then you gotta like just kind of know that red is this and water is this, and then do the notation and just keep trying until you can successfully trigger it. Seeing if you can kind of use the enemy's spells to your advantage too, because if done right, they will also kind of help you.
Okay.
There's a good chance that their spell will fit into what you're trying to do. And then once you do the notation correctly, the game just ends, basically. You just cast Chrono Cross and that's it.
Which I like that. I'm okay. Because the real final boss, well, if you do it that way, the boss before the Time Devourer, which is the one that's been which is the dragons all form into one big giant monster, which is from Dinopolis, which is the city that Azula would have had Lavos not came, because then the dinosaurs wouldn't have lost, which I love that idea too, by the way. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and you find out that Harl is actually a dragon in disguise that they created to, that's luring you on, like, oh, you got to go here and stop Fate, and finding out that stopping Fate for the Frozen Flame, which is part of Lavos, is all part of stopping, essentially getting so they can take over. I love the fact. I love how you're being purposely pushed through by people you just don't know about this entire game, and everybody's just using you.
Oh, yeah,
also, yeah, and like they do a similar thing to Final Fantasy VII too, where you're kind of in that other realm for a while, and Harl's kind of taking her place as kind of a guide for you. Kind of like her walking on the walls and kind of telling you about like choosing paths and all that stuff.
I really like Harl. He's a really cool character. I was bummed because I had forgotten all about the story. They're like, Seventh Dragon. I'm like, where'd Harl go? I'm like, oh, that's where Harl.
Yeah.
I had forgotten all of that. And I really like that fight. I like the Time Devourer. I thought all that was really good. Terra Tower reminded me a lot of Omega. God, what the hell? It's just called Omega, right? That giant ship, Black Omega?
The Black Omen?
Black Omen. I don't know why the hell my brain just could not remember it just now. Thank you, sir. Yes, It reminded me of Black Omen a lot because you fought a bunch of different bosses and it was really good. I really liked the Terra Tower and the ending leading up to this game. And I really enjoyed the final fights and everything with Scala. And I enjoyed the fact that you essentially reset time, save Scala, which was missing from Chrono Trigger because of what happened to her. And you essentially, and then like there's a picture in the ending too where Surge and Kid are married, which I didn't catch it until someone pointed out to me. But that was really, I think that's really cool. That's essentially supposed to be the idea of what happened is that they got married. That she came back and she found him like you said she would, and they got married. So
I like that kind of parallels Chrono Trigger's ending too. Chrono and Marl getting married. Now,
they die 5 months later.
Do they Surge and Kid die 5 months later?
Maybe.
God, I fucking hate that. Pisses me off.
If they ever do a Chrono Break, maybe they'll explore that.
We're never getting Chrono Break though.
No.
I mean, they let that freaking IP that trademark run out. God, it makes me so mad. I want a Chrono Break so bad too.
I always like as a kid or young teenager, I went after Chrono Cross and after I played it, I was like, oh, they should make a third game. And my idea was always a game called like Chrono Quest, where you have brand new protagonists wind up going back in time and crossing worlds and joining forces with both Chrono and Surge and like the respective main characters, and like do like some kind of like bring everything together.
I'm okay with that. No, go apply for Square.
Really cool.
And go work your way out the company real fast. That would be cool.
Like, oh man, just because like that. Then again, that's always the fan service thing, right? It's like, oh, bring everything back. And, but sometimes fan service is just needed. and I think that's what brings a lot of people. I mean, look what happened with Avengers Endgame. Look at Spider-Man, No Way Home. Like sometimes it just works, and it's just you need to see it as long as it's not overused.
So people like Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, that's why I liked it.
Yeah.
They do the thing that people just want, and they don't care about actually advancing the story or.
See, now that we've covered Trigger and Cross on the show and Radical Dreamers, the only next thing for me to cover is Flames of Eternity, Chrono Trigger. Or Crimson Echoes, whatever the hell the
we could do that mobile game, Another Eden, where they do the Chrono Cross crossover.
I tried. I've downloaded that before, and I've had the intention that I was going to play it, but that's never happened yet.
Now, do you think we're going to get a Chrono Trigger DS like remake port, like like this on modern?
I wish we did, because that DS port is the best version of that game.
Well, the problem is that they have the PC port, I think, already on Steam and stuff. Then that was kind of a mess.
Yeah, but I mean, do it properly for consoles.
Uh,
They're doing everything else.
Yeah, but they're weird with...
Look how many Mana games have now come over, right? The collection of Mana with the first 3. They remade Trials. They remade Secret, and then they did Legend of Mana is now there. Another Asian English release as well.
I'm curious what else they're going to localize still, because they could do a lot.
They're doing all the Saga games, it looks like, now at this point.
Yeah, I do want to buy that Saga Frontier.
Bahamut Lagoon or something.
Yeah, Bahamut Lagoon would be nice. Treasure of Rudros is the one that I really want, because that was a Square RPG I really liked for Super Nintendo that I have a ROM of, but I've never finished, and I think it should be out there for other people.
I think they all should be out there.
They're doing Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D. So,
yeah.
I mean, and Dragon Quest 10 offline. I want them to bring that over.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
10 offline. I don't need the online.
Because they should do Final Fantasy 11 offline as well. Speaking of that,
they were gonna do that with mobile, but then they died. But I would love to see Final Fantasy 11 offline. Final Fantasy 11 has an amazing story that so few people have played.
Yeah, I played some of it, but I have a real hatred for that game. But that's personal.
See, and I have a real love relationship for that game because I've met so many great friends that I'm still friends with today, and I met my wife playing that game. So cool. It'll forever be my favorite game because of that.
No, it makes sense. I mean, for me, it sucked so much of my time away. It's also how my girlfriend at the time, when I was like 20, met her future husband that she then divorced 8 years later. But so why we were together, met him, and so I have a bit of an anger towards that game. I mean, I don't understand. Like my life worked out for the best because of all that, but it's just funny because it's like it just wastes so much time spent in that game doing nothing, trying to.
You mean you didn't enjoy sitting in your Mog house watching your Mog spin while you had your party flag up, hoping someone would send you a tell to invite you to a party so you could get some experience?
And then you run all the way there and the party disbands or something? Yeah, I don't miss that.
After like 2 battles. All right. Sorry, guys. I got to go. Well, I guess we should call it quits, but I just got here. Sorry. Party disband. Never again. But, I mean, it's a good game.
You know, they're releasing a lot of these games again, and thankfully, you know, Nintendo is still doing well with the Switch, that they're also releasing a lot of older stuff again. Like Fail Frame, the one that was never released here, is finally coming to Switch. Yeah. That's not Nintendo necessarily, but...
Well, it kind of is, because Nintendo owns the IP, and they're allowing Tecmo to bring it to every system, too.
That's cool.
That's cool.
But, like, you know, now I'm looking at other games I would love to come out. Like, Monolith Soft has a whole history of games that never saw a proper release over here. Like
Disaster Crisis?
Disaster Day of Crisis is my favorite Wii game. I will talk about that game endlessly. I imported it. I love it.
Yeah, I want that over here.
But like, you know, Somabringer, there was a Mistwalker game, Ash for DS that should come out.
Xenosaga 1 and 2 on DS.
Oh, I tried to import that and play that as well. It's a 2D remake.
Yeah, they've remade the first 2 Xenosaga games.
Is it English?
No, Japanese.
Did fan translate the ROM?
I don't know, maybe.
Oh, you have my attention, sir.
It's a cool little thing because it came out before Xenosaga 3 did. Yeah, one of those things that's just out there that I wish we could play. I wish that we had the ability to kind of do this other stuff.
Well, that's really where this generation is going. Like it's what's old is new, and they're bringing a lot of stuff back. Yeah. Even with like the Nintendo Online, the Switch Online stuff, like the N64, they brought Sin and Punishment over, and the Super Nintendo has a bunch of Super Famicom games on it that never came over, and the NES has some Famicom games as well that we're getting.
Sin and Punishment's been around since the Wii.
eShop. Yeah, but what I'm saying is they brought it back as well. They could have left it on the in Japanese markets, but they brought it over. Like playing like Mario Picross on Super Famicom is just like so surreal and weird because I love Picross and it's in Japanese, but it's still playable and it's like Picross. It's there. it's there. I mean, it's just seeing like Mario characters hold up like regular random stuff and be like, yay! It's just so weird. But I love the fact that we're at least getting the ability to play them. And look, Mega Man Wily Wars finally getting released over here after so long on the Genesis Classic, and now on the Switch Online Genesis app is there.
Like they did Mother, of course, years ago.
Mother Earthbound Beginnings.
Hey, what about the sequel to Earthbound and GBA? What about that one, huh? Mother 3?
Mother 3, yeah.
It'd be great to see.
I would love to see the incomplete version of Earthbound 64 come over too. Like, let's play that.
And speaking of this, Mother was one of those games that had like an ESRB, not an ESRB rating, but like it was done. It was localized or whatever, and they never released it.
Yeah, that's why they did Earthbound Beginnings.
Right, and Ash on DS had a very similar thing where they were working on it. They hired people to do voice acting for it, and it never came out.
So maybe.
So like maybe they could resurrect that.
Look, they brought over the very first Fire Emblem and translated it, and then they took it away.
That was
and I bought that. I'm glad to at least have had that.
I bought the physical, which was stupid that they didn't actually give us a physical cart. And then it
is very stupid they didn't do that.
I did pay for the download just to have it because who knows when it would ever come back again. It's so stupid.
Speaking of that, I remember reading a story that that was originally something that they were doing for the Wii U.
I believe it.
They're a weird company.
There's a lot of great stuff, but this is the day and age where I feel gamers growing up now are beyond spoiled because they have access to all the games we grew up with, all the games that they're coming out. And it's like, if you say, oh, there's nothing for me to play, then you need to expand your horizons because there's infinite things.
Yes.
I had a friend, I used to live with a guy who'd be like, he'd be like, I'm bored. And I was a huge game collector at this time. And I want to be like, you have time because you're not working. You have a giant 360 library next to you of over like 300 games that I've been collecting for for 2 years at this point. Like, there's stuff to play, buddy. Like, don't be bored.
Yeah.
Like, play something I can't play.
If video games stop, let's say video games stopped at the end of this year, every game coming out in 2022 continues and no more games ever come out. A kid growing up will not be able to play every game that's come out before they die. A kid. It's impossible. There's that many games out right now. So the selection is ginormous.
Wild.
Like, it's insane.
We're past the point too where like when I was a teenager I used to be like on all those like localization forums just begging and hoping that all these games get released, Atlas or NIS or all of them, just like, please release Breath of Fire 3 portable, please release all the Trails games like you said you would, Exceed.
Yeah. And some of them have come to fruition, and some, like I saw something now about Star Ocean 2, the PS4 version in the West is based on fan demand and all that. So just bring Star Ocean. Just give us physical collections. Come on. The new one's doing really well.
Second Story is a great game.
Yes, it is. I need to cover it too.
The first 4 are great games. 5 was a train wreck, but is at least playable. And 6 is, as far, I'm like almost 20 hours in, and I'm loving it.
That's Integrity and Faithlessness was the bad one?
That was 5th, yeah, number 5. It's not bad. It's just subpar compared to the other games. It's completely playable as a standard RPG. It just doesn't feel like Star Ocean until you finally go to space, which is like the last 5 to 10% of the game.
So it's like the Xenosaga 2 of Star Ocean.
Yeah, kind of like that, yeah. So is it a bad game? No. Is it a good Star Ocean game? No. Is it worth playing? I'd say yeah, if you enjoy the series and you just want to play, an RPG. But is it the greatest experience ever? No. Like, it is the weakest entry. I know some people didn't like 4 that much. I loved 4. I thought 4 was well done, and I loved.
Is 4 the 360 one?
Yeah, yes. Last Hope.
Okay, I played it, but a little bit, and I was enjoying it. I didn't finish. I fell off.
Speaking of games they should localize, how about Star Ocean Blue Sphere?
Yeah.
What is? I've heard of that, but I can't remember what it is.
It was like a WonderSwan game, I think.
Yep. Or was it WonderSwan or there was Game Boy?
I'm looking it up.
I think it's Game Boy Color.
Game Boy Color.
Game Boy Color, yeah. I have a fan version of it.
The North American version was planned but canceled, of course.
Well, talking about Grandia, another fantastic JRPG series, Grandia Parallel Trippers. Let's get that over too. So if you know that exists.
All the Tales games that ever came out here.
I'm a big fan of Grandia 2.
Grandia 2 is amazing. Yes. Grandia, all those 4 games that came out here, but there's a 5th game, Parallel Trippers, which has characters from the first Grandia in it, and it was only on the Game Boy Color, I believe, as well in Japan. Never got localized, and it's a different story. It's not like a retelling; it's a brand new story.
I'm
But
assuming
we
they got fan
got the first Mana games to come out finally, so anything's possible.
Not only did we get the third game, but we got a remake in 3D of the third game.
Yeah.
Like, wow, talk about eating good. And now that Legend of Mana come out, maybe we'll get Sword of Mana and Heroes of Mana and Children of Mana and Dawn of Mana. You know,
God, I know what you're talking about,
or
unfortunately.
maybe a brand new Mana game. That would be great. That's not mobile. Let's do that.
That's
And we'll
not-
pretend
what
Secret of Evermore is a Mana game too.
Well, Secret of Evermore, they probably won't touch because that was made for American markets like Mystic Quest, and they
Yeah.
probably
Yeah, I
touch that.
know. I know. I'm just trying to slide that in, hoping.
It's like Nintendo won't touch Star Tropics again, unfortunately, because that was never released in Japan and made for American audiences, even though they.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Star Tropics 1 and 2 was only US. It was here. This is for you. Japanese won't want it, so they. I don't doubt. That's why they haven't touched it. That's why there's not even a trophy in Smash Brothers. You know, it's they don't.
Yeah, Disaster Day of
Japan.
Crisis has a spirit in it.
Yeah.
All things.
Because that came out in Japan as well as Europe. It just never came out
in
in
Australia.
Nintendo of America is weird. Look, Operation
Yeah,
Rainfall had the thing for a reason.
Operation
We had
Rainfall
to
was
beg.
huge for me back in the day.
Yep, we had to beg for those things, and even
Yes.
Xseed had to give us 2 of the 3.
I still have never played any of those 3 games yet from Operation Rainfall.
You need to play
It's so
Xenoblade.
good.
I know. I also really want to play the other 2. Are they like really Wii dependent, like Wago mode?
They're on the Wii. That's pretty much the thing.
I know. I mean, I have them on my computer, but I've just wondered if I need to have a Wii mode or can I play it with a controller? Will it be okay with a controller?
I think you could play them with the because I played with the Pro controller, the Wii Pro controller. Like Xenoblade, I played with the Wii Pro controller.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I wouldn't play the Wii version of Xenoblade. I would play the Switch.
Play the 3DS
definitive
version,
edition.
right?
No, the Switch version.
I do want to play the 3DS version still. That sounds like a fun, weird thing to do.
The Switch version is the definitive version, then you get Future Connected, which is the next game epilogue.
Okay.
Story. But yeah, they did so many. Like you talk about the improvements of Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers edition versus the original. They did a lot of that stuff with Switch because they remade the whole game, so it looks better. They added new mechanics. They made it more user friendly. They did a lot of stuff they wanted to do 10 years ago.
Okay. I like user friendly stuff.
Yeah, definitely play the definitive edition.
All right. Any last things to say about Cross before we go on to questions, comments, or memories?
I think Chrono Cross has given us a lot of great discussions.
It has. I mean, this has been a great conversation
Um,
about. I'm loving it, even though Chrono Cross is not. That's fine. That happens. I don't care. I don't care.
Like the whole Radical Dreamers edition has been a godsend, honestly.
Yes. I'm just
Really
glad more
was.
people get to experience it.
Same, and I'm also
Yes.
glad people finally get to experience Radical Dreamers. Also, like that makes
Yes.
me so happy that this collection, and it was the right price. $20 was perfect for this. I mean, I get it doesn't make economic sense for people that are creating this. I get it. It's like, but for me, it was perfect. I loved it. So thank you.
So if you're a cheap ass, it's perfect.
Oh God, I'm a cheap bastard. I mean, like I almost didn't buy the Steam Deck. I wasn't going to. I'm like, I can't spend $400 on this thing. And my wife is like, "Yes, do you want it?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, were you gonna because I was thinking about buying an Xbox
Series X.
and I was like, well, if I buy this, I'm not gonna want to buy a Series X now. She's like, I'm not even gonna play a Series X, so I bought a Steam Deck, and I can't put it down.
Moral of the story is localize more games, play more games. Monolith Soft's a great developer. Chrono Cross is basically proto Monolith Soft. Good shit.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to questions, comments, or memories. Pull up my phone. I posted this in a few different groups, and luckily people were nice and had stuff to say and didn't block me in their group. So that was thank you guys.
You had that happen to you?
Once. Silent Hill 4, I posted in the Silent Hill group. They didn't block me, but they took off my post because it was self-promotion, which, like, yes, they are, but I've been posting these forever and no one ever says anything because I ask questions. I ask for, comment. And I always say, yes, I'm going to read it because I want people to know, like, what you say is going to be read on a podcast, buddy. Like, I don't know, it feels like, but yeah, people get upset that one group said, oh, no self-promotion, and they deleted my post. I was like, come on, guys, I've been doing this for like 3 years, and the first time's ever happened to me. So, yes. I'm salty. All right, first from the I Watched the Entire Overblood Super Replay group, from Derek Mallow. My favorite memory of this game was during spring break of my senior year in college. All I did that week was wake up, play Chrono Cross, smoke weed, repeat. Hey, there we go again. The kind of time where you can just do whatever you want. From Oakley Gleason. It's a game I always wanted to play as a child, but never did due to it being just a bit before my time. I now have a physical copy sitting on my game shelf for the Switch. One of these days, I plan to finally play it. You should. You really should. From James Johnson. Beautiful music and a twist I didn't see coming when I played it. From Mark C, played it for the first time during the pandemic. I really enjoyed it. Loved the music and the wide range of characters you can get. Again, pandemic was a great time to play an RPG. I played Xenogears during the pandemic when it first started. I mean, it's still working.
Chronicles again.
Perfect time because you couldn't leave your house. Play an RPG. You've
also played Tokyo Mirage Sessions during the pandemic. That was fun.
Such a good game too.
We'll talk about that.
I want to play
it. That's like B tier Atlas.
I still loved it though.
From Michael Jarrett, one of the best OSTs ever. Really clicked with me right from the start. As timeless as Triggers, I think I prefer Cross. I prefer Trigger, but Cross is really good. From Alan Petrozzi, some of the dialogue in the beginning of the game hits differently every time to play every few years. Yeah, because you understand what's happening. All right. From Tristan Stewart Best, Chrono Trigger passed me like a ship in the night, so I approached this as a kid as its own thing entirely and loved it. It was unlike anything else. The art direction, music, and plethora of available party members all felt inspired and still do, in my opinion. I think it's a little hard to revisit due to its slow by modern standards gameplay, but I really like Chrono Cross. Yeah, I think it's better if you hadn't played Trigger and you go into this game because then you don't have the expectations like I did, which upset you. And
don't
from
have
Nick,
expectations. That's the moral of the story, always.
Yeah. And from Nick Ludeman, I was introduced to Chrono Cross by a friend whose brother had bought the game but never played it. So I borrowed it and almost immediately fell in love after the intro cutscene. The opening notes of the intro song Time Scar still give me chills and is easily one of my favorite VGM tracks next to Triggers, Corridors of Time. All right. Oh, and here he has questions, actually. What are your thoughts on the soundtrack? When I played the remaster, I often found myself letting each new area's track loop a few times so I could soak it in.
It's fantastic.
We touched on it. It's fantastic.
Oh, yeah, it really is. I enjoyed it.
Yasunori Matsuda is a fantastic composer.
Yes. This is great freaking music. And from Official Laser Time Community, I got one comment from Alan Lawrence Matthews. I was working at a software etc. at the time. I was a huge fan of Trigger. I still have this. And he posted a picture of it looks like a watch or it's a clock of Chrono Cross. It has a Chrono Cross symbol.
Nice.
I'm jealous. And from the last group, that's everything I got. Oh, wait, no, never mind. I have another group I just couldn't see. From the Chronoverse group, this is the last group. From Mark Rodriguez, I hated Chrono Cross when it first came out because of expectations from Trigger. Upon replaying it later, realizing that it is a continuation of the world as a whole, or at the very least, a big old side quest to save Scala, I can appreciate for what it is. The plot up near the end, though, I really had to have it processed in my mind for a while and make sense of it all, along with stuff I could dig up from discussion boards. It's an awesome game. I wish there was a sequel so we could find out what happened after the dimensions merged and learn the fates of both CT and CC characters. Hey, just like Barry, which I really want what Barry said to come true. It won't, but I want it to.
Hey, I wanted it back then. I still want it now.
I regret that this series just went away. That's what made me happy about them re-releasing this. I'm like, hey, maybe they're going to do something. I know they're not, but I can wish.
Yeah, the thing is, you gotta wonder what a sequel is gonna be, right? Because okay, Chrono Trigger is about time, Cross is about dimensions. The only way they can really go from there is that the new one is about media itself, transcending Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, Radical Dreamers as pieces of fiction, basically.
Did you ever play Danganronpa?
No, but I want to.
Oh, okay, yeah, definitely play that series.
People keep. Oh, no. I don't play it. I was thinking, okay, I
love Ace Attorney. I love 999, so it's up my alley.
Do you play all the Zero Escape games, all three of them?
No, only the first one, but I need to play the others as well.
Yeah.
I'm behind a lot of things.
And what about AI? The 2 AI games?
Nope.
Oh, you need to play those too.
I have a lot ahead of me, basically.
A lot of great games.
From Timothy Williams, still love it. Been playing it since it first came out. Loved it being its own game, plus looking for the subtle connections to Trigger. And from Dylan Napier, I literally haven't played it in 22 years. I recall enjoying it. It just wasn't the game I wanted. I wish it was called something else and wasn't associated with the first game. That is how I felt for years until this recent playthrough, and I completely am. I will never talk bad about Cross again in my life. I talked a lot of shit about Cross. That's over with because I appreciate the game for what it is now. And it is a good sequel to Trigger. It's just not what I wanted. But that's fine. All right, from Sahari Nasser Eden. As far as I remember, I really loved the game, especially its soundtrack that I found so wholesome. Did not finish it, though. I was blocked the fight against Miguel. Decided to buy the remaster and was heartbroken. It was very laggy on my Switch. That's sad. I mean, it shouldn't be an issue on Switch.
It's been noted to be laggy.
Oh, okay. That's another thing. Okay, I mean, it was noted. It was laggy on my PC, but that was because I had some setting I had to go fix, and I was lazy.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a me problem. That wasn't a game problem. From David Boyce, I love getting lost in game lore and untwisting a well-spun mystery is something I always look forward to. I was glad to revisit the world again, even if it's different from what I remembered in Trigger. The music is still on my phone to this day. And last question. Remember being excited to bring to my buddy's house. His older brother sees it and sees kid and goes, "What the fuck? Why is she flat?" Okay.
Oh, God.
Because the guy's an asshole and she's a teenager. So, yeah. I don't know. I found it funny, though. I think people are stupid. I love that sometimes.
Or stupid.
Yes, they are. All right. And that brings us to our last segment, shelf, stack, or box. Shelf being something you really like. Stack being something you like, but not as much. And it's the middle ground. And box being something you dislike. And I'll go first. So I was torn when we first started this conversation. I was like, I'm going to put this game in the stack. I wasn't as fond of it, but the more we talked about it, the more it compressed thinking about it since I beat it. This is going to go on the shelf. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. I had a great time playing this game, way more than I expected going into this. This game was something else. I mean, yes, the battle system wasn't exactly for me. The fact that I couldn't grind wasn't for me, but the more I thought about it, I didn't need to grind. Except for that fucking aerial fight, everything was fine. And the game let me play it. The game let me enjoy it. I just missed out on a big key part of the story that I would love to see. Fuck you, Dario, again. But other than that, it's a great game. I'm really mad about that, by the way. Because if I would have known that fight was that hard, I would have made an effort to steal the black plate other than I tried once, failed, and walked away and didn't care. The guy told me, you want this plate. I'm like, I don't care. I care.
That's your own fault, then. Don't blame the game.
I don't blame the game. I blame me. That's why the game's going on the shelf, because the game is really good, and I'm so glad I got to revisit it. I don't know if I'll replay it in New Game Plus. Probably not, just because it's me. But I had a great time. Oh, what about you, Dominic?
What's going on the shelf? I love this game. As soon as I finished, earlier this year, it's like, oh, this is fantastic. This is what I wanted. This is like up there for me with my favorite RPGs, because not everything hits necessarily, but the story, the music, the philosophy of it, the way it is written and conceived and done really hits for me. And as a fan, like I've said, of Chrono Trigger through Xenoblade, it's an important part of that lineage that I appreciate a lot.
All right. And what about you, Barry?
It's also shelf. I mean, it's one of those things. It brings me back to a better time. Classic Square RPG just does things right. And, as a teenager, I really enjoyed it. And as an adult, I can really appreciate it. So, yeah. Is it a game I'm going to replay maybe when there's a break of other things I want to play? I don't usually replay games because there's just too many other games to play. Mm-hmm. And I have broader tastes. But if I had the time and nothing else to play, I would absolutely replay this game. But I probably would do Trigger first, just to freshen it up.
Oh, you should have Triggers. All right, and if you want to hear what we're talking about next week I'm going to be covering Klonoa, Door to Phantomile for PS1. A game I have never played before until this week.
Another game that got remade.
Yeah, I'm playing the PS1 version.
Everyone talks about lovingly, but it's like a secret that not everyone talks about.
Yeah, I never knew about it. I never cared about it. And then, someone's like, you should play it. I'm like, all right. And then when the remake came out, I'm playing the PS1 version because I want to state. But
I like the remake. I never played the original, but I played through both games in the remake and had a good time. 100% in both of them.
I kind of want to buy it now, but it's only on Switch, right?
No, PlayStation and Xbox, but it's only physical outside of the US. So you had to import the European or the Asian. But if you're going to play it on a non-Switch system, I recommend the European, because Asian use the O button for confirm and the X button back.
Like the Japanese way.
But the European, because all Asian releases are going to be like that. But the European do it like us. So you get the European English version, and that way you'll be like playing an American version. That's what I did. And I played on PlayStation 5.
Okay, I'm just playing the PS1 version on my Steam Deck, and I'm liking it so far. I suck at it, but I like it. It's I've never played it. I skipped it back in the day because I'm not a big platformer fan. So
that's like a game I hear about, and then Jeff Gertzman's like, oh yeah, Klonoa, yeah. I'm like, okay, fair enough.
It's pretty cool.
It's probably one of the best platformers on this PS1. Better than Crash by a long shot.
That's not a high bar.
I know it's not a high bar.
I'm curious how it holds up today, because my favorite PS1 games to go back to even now are this, Chrono Cross, and Mega Man Legends. That's my barrier of what holds up today.
I don't know how the PS1 version holds up, but I could say the remake is done really well. So that would be the version I would recommend.
The only issue with the PS1 is me. So, but yeah, it's fine so far. I got to play more of it though. But yeah. All right. So that's what you get to stay tuned for next week. And Barry, where can people find you at?
Sure, you can find me on Twitter at Hawk Hellfire. And then you could find one of the places I work with, Nintendo Fuse. You can find us on Twitter at Nintendo Fuse, as well as YouTube Nintendo Fuse and Facebook Nintendo Fuse, as well as NintendoFuse.com. And Premium Edition Games, where we sell physical versions of digital-only titles. You can get those at PremiumEditionGames.com. Follow us on Twitter at Premium Edition 1 and everywhere else as just Premium Edition on social media, or Premium Edition Games at social media.
All right. And Dominic, where can people find you at?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at DACICHOCKI. I have the Dissonant Waves podcast on YouTube. I'm also on the Overblood Facebook group.
Where I met a lot of people that are on the show.
Yes.
All right. And first,
Barry,
I
if you've not played Overblood, you should play it.
No, you shouldn't. Overblood PS1.
Is it a horror game?
It is.
I'm not a horror fan, so I won't play it.
It's not really that. It's a it's a weird
game. If you like level 5 games, it is an important game in the level 5 lineage.
Level 5 is some really good stuff.
It's a weird ass game.
Where Akihiro Hino got his start was with the Overblood series.
I really want to play 2. I actually know somebody. I know the guy who runs the Overblood 2 website, who created it and like interviewed people that like he loves that game. And
Overblood 2 is wild.
I know I really want to play it one day, sort of.
Yeah.
But I just can't get myself. One day.
Because the sequel is basically like a Final Fantasy or like action RPG type game.
It's really weird. Yeah, I've seen it. I'm like, what the fuck? For PS1. So one day. All right, so I just want to thank everyone for 200 episodes. You've been listening to the show. 200 a week we've been doing this. Not 200 episodes. There's almost 400 at the point you're hearing this, that I record so much. But 200 weeks, and you guys have been listening and kept me going, and I haven't missed a week yet.
Wow.
So proud of that.
That is impressive. Congrats.
I don't know how the fuck I've done it, but it's impressive.
I don't either.
Yeah, I don't.
So, yeah, my life has become this podcast in a way. So,
come hell or high water.
200.
I love it. I won't miss a week. I record a week ahead of time, and I've had things happen where shit hits the fan, and I'm like, we're fucking recording one way or the other. Like, get it? We got to get together. So, yeah, I won't miss. I can't, because it would throw off my whole rhythm of my schedule and everything, and I don't want to do that. So, I make myself record. But I love it. So that's it. And so, yeah, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you want to support the show, we have a Patreon. For as little as $1, you can vote in our Patreon poll. We have a new poll starting when the time you're hearing this to go along with it's our Christmas movies that aren't Christmas movies poll, or Christmas movies that take place during Christmas that aren't Christmas. Batman Returns, Gremlins, Ghostbusters 2, or Lethal Weapon. So you get to choose what we're going to cover. You get to vote. For as little as $1, go join our Patreon. You'll see a link in the show notes. We have a Discord. You can join our Discord and talk with us. Please do. There's a link in the show notes to the Discord channel. And if you want to hear our take on Chrono Trigger and episode 100, and if you want to hear what we thought about the other game that fits into this continuality, you can listen to Radical Dreamers Mini 26. And I want to give a shout out to my awesome intro and outro, courtesy of Helena at Hell Hasphere. You can follow her on TikTok. Definitely check her out. She went viral, actually, for making TikToks. And I want to give a shout out to my buddy Bill Tucker, who did the MCU movies with me, a bunch of them. He started his own podcast, A Gamer Looks at 40, so definitely go follow him. And last thing I need, if you want more of us, also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube. We're audio only, but all the podcasts do go on YouTube. And I appreciate every subscribe I get, even though one day I'll make video content. I keep telling myself that. One day. So that's everything I need to say. So we will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a good one.